Tactical Crouch, episode 178. It's taking you guys 178 episodes to finally get me on. Give you guys 2 good seconds there. My chair turning around, wondering who that could be. Obviously, with my name already down the bottom. I swear this is also the first time we've attempted this. 1 time is all we need. 1 try is all we need. You know, that's it. I'm on the show. What's up? How you guys doing? Joe, Yiska, regulars here, obviously. Episode 178. So I lie. It hasn't taken 178 episodes for me to be. I think I've been on the show like 3 times total in the past, something like that.
Very true. Yeah.
We'll take 3 out of 170. It was 3 out of 177, I guess.
Very true. Yeah. Yeah. And now you're on permanently. And actually, if Joe remembers, that was actually our plan all along. That was like the plotting.
That was the ideal. It was just like, if we could get AVRL to work, I think that'd be the best. That'd be the best bit. I don't like, nobody else is like, that's the white whale. That's the one. It's just like, if we could, but I don't know if it's gonna work. But hey, we're here.
I don't think anyone could have expected. I legitimately think I don't think people would have expected that, because you say that, but like, I've been on the show. I didn't even know there was 177 episodes prior to this, but I've been on the show so few times in comparison to that number. Like, I wasn't even I don't know, man. I just felt like, you know, you guys are doing your own thing. I'm over there in the showless corner where I'm just like, anybody?
Please.
Just looking through the frosted glass, like, anybody? Can I come in?
I mean,
but you know what it takes is I got to just bust down the door. You know, I kick that door down, and
it's definitely just a coincidence that we invited you once you actually landed the Overwatch League job. Just pure coincidence.
Oh, imagine.
Oh boy. Yeah, man. Wouldn't be here just in contenders. You know, that wouldn't be good enough. I mean, funnily enough, I haven't even been here since I got on Overwatch League, so I don't even know. Like, this is
true.
I was the only times I've been on here. I was a contenders caster anyway.
Big leagues now.
So, you know, as is tradition though, on TCP, I'm gonna do the patron shout out, the very coveted patron shout out. So, to all our beautiful patrons out there, thank you so much. But specifically, this episode is brought to you by Refined Bean, Fraudino, Battle Crab, Lolshin, Rex Zane, Sir Girthalot, Pork Chop Sammy, Casher67, Chara, Natham, Your Misery, Fabled Steven, Roger B, Chris R3444, Bronzebot Buhal, Hotel Bravo 11, Hunter Tane, Yiska's Orpa Scented Shower Gel, and Chonks. There it is. Give yourselves a round of applause and a pat on the back, because you guys are special and you guys are fantastic. Now, gentlemen, we have a pretty loaded topic list today. I don't know when the last episode was or what was even talked about. It's a clean slate. Like, I'm going to say this. New TCP. There's got to be some other changes happening down the line as well. For example, we're getting rid of both Yiska and Joe at some point. But we're gonna have new graphics. We're gonna have new things added to the show, cool stuff added to the show. Maybe a different tone of the show as well. In fact, you're probably gonna see that here today, right now. Just the fact that I'm here, it's gonna be a little bit strange, maybe in a good way, like a good weird. No, it's not gonna be weird. It's just gonna be cool.
I mean, it might be weird. It might be weird.
Well, but it won't be because of me, and that's the important part.
Exactly.
So we get into some interesting stuff that's happened over June Joust. You know, recapping, obviously, talking about homestands, bit of drama on Reddit. Get a little bit into that. You know, you got to get a little bit of drama on the show as well, and then some expectations and preds for how the actual tournament is gonna go. So without further ado, guys, been a pretty interesting tournament so far. Any just general stuff to get out of the way first?
No, just, excited to see, these metas clash. It was, kind of strange to see kind of a lot of upsets, a lot of, surprising results. And yeah, just, the evolution of a meta is a wondrous and surprising thing sometimes, where it can kind of sneak up on you. So we'll have to see what the rest of June looks like.
Surprising, of course, only to those without the knowledge of
Yes, okay, Juice Lord, Mr. 16th award-winning journalist and, esports legend.
I have won anything and I didn't even press them to win.
Ender of eras, just, bookending everybody.
Yeah.
Someone that works in the Illuminati, you're surprisingly like front-facing, Yiska. I gotta say that. That's quite impressive.
Yeah. What can I say?
You're like on camera. You write articles. You're very public about it. for someone that is a puppet master behind the scenes, really pushing all the buttons and controlling all the stakes and everything. So I'm impressed. That takes some courage.
I mean, hiding in plain sight is the best place to be, right? Just not
That's
even
true,
pretend.
man.
I'll just straight up tell you, and they will think, this guy's weird, like.
Yeah, that's the thing. You got to straight up say like, yeah, I'm in the Illuminati. No one's gonna believe you, and then you're like, see, no one believes it anyway.
Yeah,
it's beautiful.
Yeah.
But cool. I mean, Joe, you say the rest of June. I feel like we've just started June. June really has just started. Rest of June is like there's still like a full month ahead. There's like 3 weeks of June.
It feels well, yes, we've just started June the month, but like the tournament itself, like it feels like we're just starting like a new. And it's not true because we're at the tournament at this point. Like it's literally about to end.
Yep.
But it's just the new evolution of what this was going to be, and it's kind of disappointing almost to see it not continue. So it feels like a new start, but we're about to end it anyways. It's a weird feeling. Can
I just say one thing I'm glad is ending is probably the hero pool for now anyway, for this stage.
Preach.
So that'll be out of the way. And I don't want to get too deep into talking about what we think is going to happen just yet, but let's focus on how we kind of got here. And one thing that's been definitely hot in the press so far is talking about the fact that to date, all 6 teams that have gone 4-0 in their stages, they've all been knocked out. Like, we've never had a 4-0 team actually make the tournament itself. They've always been knocked out in the actual knockout phase because their score is so good, they'd probably be the first seed. Seems like first seed is a bit cursed here. I got some thoughts on that in terms of why that could be. That's more meta towards how seedings work in the Overwatch League itself. But it's kind of wild, guys, because you would expect the first seed here. Any 4-0 team should be in for a shot, but actually none of them have ever made it.
No, I think for me in particular, again, kind of alluding to it a little bit earlier, like this evolution, I think we started with a very open kind of playground where, Wrecking Ball was very vogue in NA, and, APAC did their kind of own thing. It felt, I wouldn't say that meta in particular felt as samey or as mirrored as it was in NA, but like there was there was moments where it did feel like there was like a hard and fast meta, and there were moments where people were kind of throwing out different things. It never felt like NA past maybe like week 7, like kind of mid June, the tournament, not the month. Felt like nobody felt like they had their feet under them. Yes, I think the narrative that NA is the Lucio Reaper rush meta it definitely sticks for a lot of reasons, but I think in particular for the tournament kind of qualifiers, these last kind of play-in seeds to get to Hawaii, there was a very obvious shift, and I think it definitely reached APAC as well. That teams were kind of caught off guard by this meta bubble pop. You had a much slower tempo coming in. Orisa became like not a must pick, but way more viable than teams I think were ready for. And I
knockout.
Right when the playoffs and the knockouts, like when you see teams like San Francisco Shot kind of falling off, Gladiators again still kind of maintaining their very flexible nature. They do a lot of different things. They're very open to playing a lot of different compositions, but again, never really kind of finding footing for themselves, whether it's not being as fast enough or not being as methodical. We'll get into them a little bit later, but I think the evolution of this meta and how drastically it was changing and forcing teams to really either double down on the Winston rush or kind of splash in and practice for this slower tempo Orisa-based composition really kind of tinkered with some of the plans. And yes, you have, a bye week, not technically a bye week, but, a bye in the tournament. It doesn't provide as much value when your scrim bucks, if you will, or your practice is being kind of flipped on its head. I think the evolution was, the big selling point for me as to why, all of these kind of upsets happened. And, the first seeds are as cursed as they look.
So what, your Shock and Glads maybe boomed by meta change? Or
feels like it.
Maybe like a team's figuring out.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, choking to me? I don't know.
There's a real thing that was also present in other esports where you had lower bracket teams participating in the bracket in the final actually had significantly higher win rates for a time. So this warm-up game thing, I'm not sure if that's actually the fact or whatever it is. But like I also think there's more to the story than there being a trend or something systemic being the issue for the top seeds, right? It's like 6 games at this point. It's not that many. Wait, is it 6? Would be 4,
Yeah.
right?
Well, technically
There's 4 games
4.
in the stage,
Yeah.
and then
No. What I mean is, we had the situation that the 4-0 opponent. Oh no, sorry, I'm forgetting APAC. Yes, right. No, that on 6 occasions now, a 4-0 team hasn't made the final playoffs, which is, it's still theoretically a bunch of it will be variance, and a bunch of it might also come down to, I don't know, like the individual teams. I wasn't like a fan of what adaptations, for instance, Glads did or whatever. Like, why would you need that to do that in this particular situation? Maybe you're not confident in whatever, like, you're running into the fuel there. It's a difficult team to play, but yeah, I don't know if there's actually something tangible there that we will also see going forward. Not sure if anything needs to change even.
Do you guys think that this is due to like poor sample size, where it's like, yes, at max you've only seen these teams play about 6 games? Like, do you feel like you have like a very confident read on exactly how like the power hierarchy is like between the 2 regions?
I can tell you right now, like, this is kind of agnostic of regions, but I can tell you right now for Melee, the teams that got boomed out of that one. Let's talk about APAC first. To be fair, if you're losing Shanghai, that's not out of question. Like, Shanghai at the time, that's to me a 1st seed versus 4th seed. Where Shanghai, we're not actually 4th seed.
Yeah.
Like, they're way better than a 4th seed.
Yeah.
But that's just how they were matched up. Secondary to that as well, Shanghai, as they do, they're going to drop games in the regular season. They've dropped an 0-3 game, by the way, every single stage so far. So, that always, and that's smart, by the way, because, that means they can't go 4-0, which means they can't get cursed. So, well done, Dragons. And them beating Philadelphia is not out of question at all. I feel like Philadelphia got the harder game in their 1st seed than the other way around, which I have a secondary point to that as well, which I might bring up in just a moment in terms of, why I think the 1st seed isn't actually super strong sometimes. And this Fusion example tells you it, because it actually gave you a harder game. And then beyond that as well, you have on the NA side, like Dallas Fuel getting a 3-0 versus Shock and Outlaws and just rolling through. And Outlaws had a perfect stage there as well. And that was specifically where both teams, specifically Outlaws, admitted to not really prepping for the Fuel, because they knew, like, they didn't know. They felt like it was going to be Fuel losing to Shock and then playing Shock instead. And they wanted that second match versus the Shock to be a win as well. Shock were probably very focused on Outlaws because they were overlooking Fuel as well, and Shock were looking to get the revenge match versus Outlaws, and both those teams got boomed by Dallas because Dallas made it click right at the end of the stage, so much so that they won the entire stage, won the Melee, and both teams that failed to prepare for the Fuel lost them. So that's a pretty easy to explain one as well. I look at Justice Mayhem, and to me, I'm trying to remember exactly what happened in that game, but over the course of Melee, Florida, to me, it looked like they had a good grasp on the meta as well. They're really incredible individuals. I thought BKB played insane last stage on the hit scans. Yaki's Tracer, say no more. Gargoyle really stepped up on the flick tanks as well, so it wasn't a surprise to me, especially watching how Florida played the Melee, that they ended up beating Washington at that exact stage. So there's a few teams here that, to me, have made it because they kind of found their footing and found their pace right at the end of the stage. And Fusion, who kind of maybe their seeding betrayed them a little bit. Looking over towards the June Joust, it's like, okay, well, here, who you have Spark, who I'm not going to lie, I think they kind of choked on stage a little bit. They definitely would have underestimated New York a tiny bit, I would say. Who wanted New York, who weren't even meant to be there. And on the NA side of things, Atlanta stepped up huge, and I think it's another one of the situations where I don't know if teams were that ready for an Atlanta to be that strong. So I don't know if it's super systemic outside of the Shanghai Fusion scenario. To me, it's just some teams just found their stride at the exact right time, and other teams, they were just in the middle, neutral, or maybe they got worse, but definitely in the middle, and they weren't at the level of the new version of the team that won.
It's also a thorough selection method that we have, right? 4 matches is not enough to clearly say you're most definitely first seed. Yeah. And like the matches themselves sometimes turn to be so close. Like if you think about them as like chances, right? Like there's a 60% chance that this team wins against that other team. They hit the 60% chance in 2 matches. That variance is very easily reversible in a third match, right? Like it's very possible. So, like, unfortunately, unless you're a team that has other patterns that overlap that, so for instance, I'm thinking of Dallas, who at the start of the stage seem to be weaker than at the end of the stage, or cycle, then you just have to assume that there's much more volatility in the system, and obviously by design to a degree, right? Like, part of the parity that we're experiencing is enforced by the system.
In that way, it doesn't feel like there is like a standout group of teams where in the past it always felt like in season 1 we had, you know, New York and these dominant forces kind of coming through. Season 2 you had Shock and Titans kind of mandating the lay of the land. Season 3 you had kind of a 5-man group where it was very clear that they were, you know, stratified amongst the rest of the teams. Now it doesn't feel like that. It doesn't feel as much separated. Yes, there are some repeat teams, and we still are early in the season. This is only, you know, I guess marking the halfway point once we finish. But we're also leading into, you know, AVRL's kind of mentioned a curse, but Summer Showdown technically, you know, the summer for the Overwatch League is, you know, just saying, a little cursed. You know, you look at season 1, Valiant performing really well in the summer. Season 2, you had Shanghai. Season 3, you had, you know, people like the Charge kind of coming up and doing extremely well, and then kind of tapering off due to the playoff patch and you know, things kind of shaken up. So again, not the only curse out there. I'm just saying. You know, Illuminati needs to look into it. I don't know if your secret society's too busy, Yiska, but you know, maybe the Scrim Bucks.
Somebody on it, Yiska.
Yeah.
Somebody on it. Maybe Yiska's the guy that needs to is supposed to be on. He's actually the delegated person, and
maybe
he hasn't looked into it. So you know, this is I'm just telling you now to put this on your plate.
Yeah, we're gonna need a YouTube video to like kind of you know, push people towards, you know, I don't know if you're magnetized yet or you got forks coming out your ears, but you know, maybe get on it. You know, give something
like in between like destabilizing nations. Just fit this one on Yiska.
Exactly. Please.
To close out on this one, I also just realized as well. I mean, I say just realized, but looking through the bracket, I mean, the other 4-0 team was Glads, who lost to Fuel, and I don't think that's out of line at all. So you have another situation where Fuel have boomed a 4-0 team. Fuel themselves, who didn't go 4-0, and I think the only reason is because Shock came in pretty big in that game, that 3-1 game. That kind of led people to believe that Shock should be this team that gets on through, which Shock was a team that most people were, no pun intended, shocked that they weren't one of the teams going to Hawaii, because I put down Shock and Dallas. I'm sure like 90% of people put down Shock and Dallas. The only people that wouldn't have had Shock and Dallas from NA moving through are like really hardcore Atlanta fans, or maybe really hardcore Boston fans that are going to support their teams no matter what match it is. So
wait, in May and Melee or in June Joust?
Oh, June.
I had Glads going through.
Yeah, so did I.
You had Glads going through?
Yeah. I got sold on the Scrim Bucks. I was like, yeah, they can't be.
I'm still not convinced that if they play vanilla that they don't.
June Joust? Okay. I'm just saying, I think Dallas beating him is not...
No, it's not outrageous.
It's not. It's not.
Yeah.
That's like that game. That game to me, like, I think Dallas they are so good at their, you know, the almost one-tricking a composition, and that's kind of what they did last stage as well. I'm not going to lie to you. Like, they're so... When they find their stride, and even old Element Mystic, when they find their stride and they can, like, really nail down a comp and just perfect it, they're kind of unbeatable. Even in situations when maybe the mid is starting to move away, they're still that good. But to end the 4-0 discussion, yeah, some of these aren't a shock. I would probably fix this a little bit in terms of allowing first seed to be able to choose your opponent, and this would be, you know, important in APAC. This would prevent the Fusion Shanghai scenario, because you can imagine if Fusion had the ability to choose an opponent, they would not have chosen Shanghai. They would have gone for somebody else, and you wouldn't have had this like extremely good battle where really the best two teams in May Melee and APAC had to eliminate each other really early. So I think seeding betrayed them a little bit. And to Yiska's point, seeding also betrays NA a little bit, because Fuel came into June Joust in 5th seed. 5th seed. Like, they're way better than a 5th seed team.
Yeah.
But the seeding just kind of like screwed things up, because there's just not enough games. There's not enough games in one.
It's that and the strength of schedule. Like, if you get an easy, you know, couple weeks. Yeah, you're gonna get in. It's not that difficult to, you get a Vancouver, you get a Valiant, a couple
And
weeks in a
Justice had
row.
an easy stage, last stage as well, you could say.
Yep,
Right?
yep. So it's
That's
you
why they
do
got
kind of
pushed
get some gimmies to get in and have a 4-0. So while yes, it is a weird coincidence, there are plenty of reasons as to why, these are happening. It kind of
Yeah.
screws with narrative too, but that's just an unfortunate,
So
circumstance of the format.
one bit of fallout coming out of this as well is we recently had some tweets going out there, some strong thoughts from players. I think Dante started this one. Dante has basically said, and I'll go ahead. We'll get the tweet. I'll read out this tweet as well, real quick. But essentially, what's going on is Houston obviously lost, and Houston are known to have a pretty strong fan base. They got 0-3'd by the Fuel, and it wasn't just like a one of those close matches. You're like, oh, we could have probably won. No, they got demolished by the Fuel. Let's be fair about it. It's so tilting how people always look for someone to blame or to flame. I guess flame or blame both work after a loss. So many heroes are so dependent on how the rest of the team plays. Feels impossible to succeed on certain heroes when the team isn't functioning as a whole. Wish people realize this before being so loud. You can check out the tweet chain to get the rest of the message in there, but it's just him explaining his thoughts a little bit. But where he's coming from is obviously Dallas Fuel had a sort of game plan, or maybe developed a game plan mid-match where they were targeting Juby a lot. Houston also had interesting compositional choices that probably didn't help them either. And you ended up having multiple fights in a row where Juby's down early, Dallas have a 6v5, and they continue rolling over Houston, and it must be pretty frustrating for the fans. Like, I get it. I'm empathetic enough to see it from both POVs, but I also look at this from Dante like, yeah, I mean, there'll be reasons why Houston played a certain way, played the team composition the way they played it, and some of the fan criticism is going to be a little bit unreasonable. It's going to be pretty unfair because they're going to come in and be like, yo, you gotta get rid of Juby and put Jake back in. You're playing Brig, you gotta put Jake in. Like, this guy's throwing, or this guy's like, how is he dying over and over? He must be inting. They're like unfairly placing blame. FD God's getting blamed from Shock fans as well. So when teams lose, you're like, oh, why did this guy do that? And then you had the whole, there's the Custer clip as well where he ends up justifiably defending FD God, like, yeah, he didn't waste the sound barrier here because this is a situation where it makes 100% sense for him to use. And people, the fans were going hardcore on FD God and all this kind of stuff, and putting a lot of pressure on the players in that regard. So that is a pretty hot topic right now, that there is always going to be some level of disconnect between what the fans see and what they think versus what actually happens in the game and why those things happen.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, there's always, like you said, there's always going to be a disconnect. It doesn't mean that these players should be getting these vitriolic comments, just really unnecessary. I think that criticism is fine, but going out of your way to attack somebody based on poor performance or just your own ignorance into actually what's happening. I think FD God in particular, yeah, I think there was a couple plays that I might like to tweak, but a lot of it felt like just Kai and Pelican not really getting shut down at all. I think Pelican was just permanently deep on these flanks and not getting paid attention to, and Kai was just playing out of his mind. And this every single moment that FD God kind of showed his head, it was just getting clicked. There's no amount of shields in the world. It kind of feels like an ons or decay situation where like there is no amount of map geometry abusing or shields kind of thrown in their face or pressure you can put on this player to really justifiably shut them down to have that stuff happening. Some things yeah, you can criticize here or there, but I think for the most of it, it was just in a weird way, Atlanta playing really well. Yes, first deaths are a significant factor in winning or losing team fights, but that doesn't always have to be due to mistakes. It can be due to somebody playing really, really well.
Yeah. It's also a very different situation, I feel like. In this, yeah, let's call a spade. This scene has an unusual amount of regular sports fans, right? Like,
yeah,
if you do polls, it's an unusual demographic that we've amassed due to the localization thing, right?
I actually feel like we're the opposite, but that's just my feeling. But go on.
Really?
It's weird. I only say that because sometimes when maybe it's because this confirmation bias, but sometimes when I see what fans say and see like where their takes are, I'm like, this person just doesn't watch sports. They don't understand how sports work. This is where the whole Monty Overwatch League is not an anime comment comes from. Because what he's trying to say is his real criticism of what he's trying to say is there are fans out there that watch the Overwatch League like it's WWE, like the winner is already rigged, it's already written in the script, and they think it's an anime where like, oh, my underdog team is going to come in because that's what the anime writer, that's what what's his face is going to put into the comic, into the manga next week, because the anime protagonist team, and it's like, no, in a real sport, like you just have to be good. That was the whole thing behind the Overwatch League is not an anime comment. So part of me has looked at this like, are they sports fans? Because like they don't look like they know sports to me. Just putting it out.
Yeah, no, there's. I mean, yes, it's not like we don't have one demographic, and we definitely have. We also had the discussion around like the whole sun culture that Apply put out and whatever. Like we definitely have a wider variety than I display here. But the thing is, like in regular sports, it's pretty normal for people to go into their internet forums and just like let loose about a player's performance, right?
That's okay.
That's okay, but in esports, it's a little bit different because we have a closer relationship to our players, right? Yes. Like we are on stream, like directly interacting with them, and we're reading chat in real time, and we're like these guys let them in directly into their brain, basically as like schizophrenic shades that just like travel through your consciousness at that point, and there's a different caution to be had. Also, these guys are not making nearly enough money to justify taking the abuse. That like these systems don't work the same. It's just very different, and therefore it should be treated differently, right? Also, just like absolute jokes of the takes there. I also kind of dislike that then everyone loves to pile on so much, like inadvertently giving these people like a platform almost by being the punching bag. I don't know. I'm not having a great time in terms of these discussions. Yeah.
Like, it's like it's a lot of their own fans. I mean, that makes sense. Like to the sports fan comment, I can see where that connection is. But like you also said, it's the fact that we're so different to sports as well because we're so on the internet. You have the fact that our players are young. We don't have like, we don't have mid to late 20s players outside like a small handful. Like outside like Toby, Lynx, or Amano, like who are the really old players in the league? Like everyone's like 19 or 18 or 20, Pretty much. You look at, I think I saw a graphic or picture somewhere, like average age of teams, and it's all either between 19 and 22, pretty much the average age of teams. And even Philadelphia Fusion, who have one of the older teams, the average age is still like 22, 23, because they have young players mixed with old players. So you got that. You have players that are not going to be fully emotionally developed yet, and they're going to be hurt by these comments a lot more. Beyond that as well, like you said, Yiska, they're closer to the internet. They're far more closer to the fans. Where like if you're a football player, if you're a basketball player, you're not going to see half these comments ever. They might even people might go into your mentions, but when you have like 1 million followers on Twitter, this is just like water off a duck's back at that stage. You're not even seeing. You probably have someone managing your account. You're not even seeing these messages. You're not going on the internet. You're not streaming afterwards. You think an NBA player is going to stream NBA 2K afterwards and talk to his fans? No, but an Overwatch League player would, and they're going to get this stuff a lot more directly. So it's just a different ballpark entirely, and so I think it's a lot of it's an outlet of frustration. Like I get it if you're like a Houston fan or a Shock fan and you had high expectations for your team, you're gonna come out here and you're looking for an outlet. There's a healthy way to do that, which is maybe you just want to yell into the void, or an unhealthy way to do that where you like DM or at a specific player and tell them how shit they are or something like that. That's probably a bit negative.
Attacking is not good. Criticizing in your own channels and your own public or private different ways, I think is fair, especially with how invested some people are into this thing, and I get that. But yeah, attacking people is just not good. If anything, like another thing that feels kind of really poignant to talk or to at least mention is I don't know that you can ever really stop this, as unfortunate as it is, and it's not the player's onus to like really fix this. But I think esports in general, across the board, it's not just Overwatch, is doing itself a kind of disservice with not really getting into lower tiers of play to really get people acclimated, not to try and take a little bit of poison every day to kind of immune yourself, but to get prepared to kind of face the music as
cliches. I always bully my players when I coach. So.
they're gonna be, you know, you'll get them used to it, I guess. Yeah, like collegiate contenders, whatever it is, tier 2 in any esport, I think needs a lot more support. So you don't have these 19-year-olds, 20-year-olds going from playing on the ladder to going in the league. You're not prepared, you know, socially.
You know what else would help? Is 5v5. Sponsored by the 5v5 gang. So, no, but in all seriousness, I think there's a little bit of disconnect as well in terms of how team orientated Overwatch is. And you get this the classic. Some of this is trolling, some of it is serious, and I feel bad for the people that are serious about this. The whole MTD thing, because it's funny when it's oh yeah, some guy killed another guy, MTD, and if it's a troll, it's whatever. But then there's like a fan that might legitimately be like, oh man, we're getting MTD so hard, we got to get rid of this main tank player on the team, we got to bin this guy, we got to get rid of him because he's getting MTD'd, you know. And what you don't realize is in Overwatch, when your team sucks, your tank looks really
the
bad.
worst.
They are the worst player on your team, which is why when NYXL sucking, everyone's like Yakpung's so bad. And like, I'm not going to say that he doesn't make mistakes. He's definitely done some bad stuff, but you look worse when your team is doing worse. Silver 3 looks god awful because his team sucks. When he goes in, he's not getting enough heals. He's not getting enough heals.
Fearless?
And I often say,
season 1? Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Hey, all you Fearless anime protagonist guys, go back and watch the season 1 games. Tell me if Fearless is a good player. He probably actually is, ironically, but his team just can't keep up. His team isn't good enough to enable him, and you look awful as a main tank player when your team is not going to be good enough to give you the support, and you look really good as a main tank player when you're Bumper on the Vancouver Titans. This is not a slight against Bumper, but let's be honest, Bumper can do some stuff that looks like straight feeding. But he survives and he gets high value because his team is so good that they'll bail him out of any situation. So there's that in the game. And I feel like, you know, back to why I even brought up the discussion of 5v5, we're not going to get into a massive 5v5 debate here, but essentially what it is you have a game that's moving in more of a direction of or a direction of people showing their value in a different light, where you're not super team dependent the way Overwatch is. And by the way, before anyone comments on that as well, which I'm sure people will, because usually when I had my 8-hour debate on my stream about this, the response always like, if you take away the teamwork, then this is just going to be Counter-Strike or Valorant. I'm like, no one said take away the teamwork. I don't know why it's black and white for people out there. It's not like all teamwork or zero teamwork. There's the middle ground. Guys, there's a gray area, and that says we can, you can increase the skill ceiling or increase the viability of individual impact, which is, as a byproduct, probably going to lower. I wouldn't even say lower teamwork by that much, but it's going to lower team dependency. That's probably the correct way to talk about it. It's not going to lower teamwork. It's going to lower team dependency. You are less dependent on your team to find success, and that way your true skill as a player will shine more. And then we can talk about MTD, because if you are more impactful and you get owned, then more of that's going to go on to you. But that would probably help as well in terms of people understanding the game, understand what's actually happening in the game, to discern whether a player is actually playing poorly or whether his team is doing poorly, and that makes them look bad.
Yeah. The simpler it gets, the less people you have, the less particles on screen, the more, as simple as it is. Yeah. If you increase individual performance, take a game like Valorant, for instance, right? Like, you have a game that is so focused around, gunplay and individual impact, but when you really kind of get nitty gritty with it, it's still very much about a resource-based game. It's about, landing all these very particular and set plays. It is very much about teamwork, and Overwatch is going to be more so, more than not, more related to that, right? Like, it's always going to be about teamwork. And if you increase the individual performance, like Avril said, like, it's just about dependency, and it's just taking that just down a notch.
Yeah. No, like, I think it's fair if you want to, unleash a little bit and want to have a way to let loose of your frustration. I think it's almost always better to talk about the collective of the team and incorporate everyone in that decision, because it is actually this complex. It is about, does my team have a practice facility? Or are we just like sitting in our apartment somewhere in Europe? That's the major difference, right? Can you criticize the individual player? Sure, but how many layers of complexity do you have to sort of scrape away from the onion until you get to the core of whatever the player issue is, right? So it's a really unique issue that we face in Overwatch. Dude, like, have people not talk, like, just pick a random evaluation thing. Let's say
Sure.
we sit 100 players, people from the community, respectively, without any prior information that this was going to happen, into individual booths and ask them, please rank the best off-tank players or the best support players, 1 to 10, 1 to 20. You know how closely this would resemble coin flips.
Yeah.
Nobody understands, like the wide majority don't understand the complexities of that and don't have a way to have objective judgments about this. It's almost more preference or, honestly, also camera time, for instance, right? Like if your good plays are shown, like I don't know how often Lee Jae-gon necessarily feeds. I know when he plays sick now, right? So,
Yeah.
like, all of that has so much to do with how your perception works. Like, if the camera is on FD God when that Reaper ult hits, right? And how he beats that, the story is completely different. And that doesn't happen in games like Valorant as much, right? Where very often it's like sequential how these one-on-ones happen, or the 2v2s, and you can have the camera on the full action. Maybe, yes, you will miss like a utility thing that's key. Seriously, not nearly as often as it happens in Overwatch, because everything happens at the same time. It's just byproduct. Like, I'm not even sure, like, 5v5 will help. I'm not sure if it will help enough, to be honest.
No. Of course, like, I think this game is kind of cursed to have, like, a really high barrier to entry to even, like, start to understand it. And by no means is this, you know, us tooting our own horns and thinking we're, you know, as high and
I don't understand.
Yeah. I like to think maybe I have like a few salient points, but outside of that, I couldn't. I don't know.
More watchable game helps as well. Like what you said about like, you know, you're gonna see. Look, let's be clear. Less visual clutter. That's why Mario sucks as well. Mario just adds more visual clutter. Everything helps in terms of understanding the game when the game's easier to watch and there's less people on screen. I think no one, you can't really argue against that. That's just like a mathematical thing. But beyond that, it's just, you know, the game, this game in particular, is so teamwork focused at the high level that you're just gonna miss so much. And mostly, if you ask a fan, like when is Lee Jae-gon bad? It's like, oh, when he dies on the kill feed. When is he good? When he gets killed on the kill feed. You know, that's probably it. That's it. Like you see him boop people off the kill feed, brilliant. I'll tell you what, if he made those exact same plays, but he got flashbanged and killed, everyone would be like, this guy's so garbage. See him feed like that. He just went and he just like fed, just completely died. You'd have the complete opposite reaction. Same play, different outcome, complete opposite reaction. So it's just like, you know, one of those things that's can be very difficult. And some of it's definitely not the fans' fault, just because you can't expect the fans to be super knowledgeable on the game. They're not going to be, and that's fine. They don't need to be, but maybe the game has to do a better job of, you know, making the game more easy to access in terms of that area. Clarity of watching it. And that's from a spectator point of view as well, because you're just not going to see half things in game. You're not going to see why FD God used sound barrier at the exact moment. You're just going to see that, you know, Shock have already won the fight and there's a random sound barrier. That's all you see. You don't see the context. You just see the quote unquote failure. So that's going to be pretty much that. Onto some more positive stuff though, guys. We just had our very first homestand of the year. So Hangzhou Spark hosted their homestand, first of a few homestands actually, from what I know. Public knowledge, I'm not leaking. Yes, I work on the league. I'm not telling you anything that's not been, you know, somewhat talked about already. But essentially, you know, this has been our first homestand since the start of the season last year, before things shut down. So it has, I don't know if it's been a full year. Has it been a full year? It might have. It might actually.
It had to have been. Yeah,
it's been more than a year.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, you know, people have been missing it. It looked great. I'll be honest. I wish I was there. Everyone does wish they were there. You know, the crowd noises that you could hear in the games were incredible. They were great. Yeah, they cheered more for the Chinese teams. It's a home audience. What do you expect?
Sure, exactly.
And honestly, you know, seeing players on the stage, even just the small stuff like seeing the fist bumps as they went and collected their victory fist bumps, like just love that. Hangzhou's own walk-in, beautiful, just really gave you the hype. Everything about it just reminded me of what esports to me really is, and it's about a live aspect. Like as much as everyone talks about, like, yeah, esports is an online thing as well. It's the beauty of it is that you can play online. It's a game, but you know, to have it be actually competitive as a sport and to be, viewed as a sport and be taken seriously. And I think to get the real feel of it, everyone's best moments in esports have come from some sort of LAN, in my opinion.
100%. Like, I don't know if this is even a question you can answer, but like, AVRL, for you, like, how clearly could you hear the crowd feed when you were
Not
actually?
at all. Zero.
Oh, that's sad.
That's not because it was quiet. That's because I'm not going to make anything up by pretending I understand why, but I think there was some technical limitation there that prevented it from happening.
Gotcha. That's
but fair. I don't know exactly. We did ask for it, but it was it's because something you have to to be reminded about the APAC broadcast from the English side and the Chinese side is that Billy handles the APAC broadcast, and the NA side, in terms of the English broadcast of that, is kind of done through Billy in a way. Like I'm not going to reveal too much or get too technical about it, also because I don't fully understand the technical side. I'm not going to try and misrepresent it. But yeah, there's going to be something technical going on in there that means certain things are limited. Like, remember, we didn't even get player cams for the longest time until very recently. So they figured something out, and there was a technical reason why it couldn't be done, and then they ended up, actually having it there. So who knows? Maybe Shanghai homestand, which will be up next. Not a leak. They said it on broadcast, in the Chinese broadcast. That is maybe something that can be introduced for the next homestand. Maybe we will get the crowd noise.
Hopefully, like, for you in particular, like, I think people really enjoy hearing casters' takes, like, regarding like what it feels like to, not only accurately be reading the game, kind of being in the moment, being in the zone, but also like hearing the emotion kind of swell of the crowd. What that does to you. Like, what is
changes
like
how
what does that mean for you to improve? Like you said, like, improves it. Like, what does it feel like to go from maybe casting not in front of just an audience, but like being able to hear a crowd versus not, like, go not to the mechanics, but like, what does that mean to you? Like, being able to hopefully get there.
It's the emotion. I can tell you the best is actually when you can cast to a crowd and your voice is going to the crowd, and then you reciprocate the emotion where, they get loud and you get loud in response, and so forth. When it's more of like an online thing, or in my case, when I've done APAC games and there's a crowd there's a live audience, but they don't hear me.
Sure.
We're still watching the same game. We're still kind of reacting to the game, and with each other through the game itself as the medium communication. But we're not exactly talking to each other at that stage. So, but even then, that's, in my opinion, significantly improves the quality of the match. Like, there's a level of hype behind it, and it's not just about energy. It's not just like I'm more excited on the cast. It's about, like, I'm there to experience the same thing the audience is experiencing, and that becomes a combined experience that I think is very important to be shared, and the cast would reflect that. Whereas, when I don't have the crowd noise, I don't know if the crowd's happy cheering about something. I don't know if they're upset about something. They're all quiet, or they're maybe like, oh, they're groaning, or I don't know. Like, who knows? Like, and to me, it's just like it's another cast, and obviously, it's a more important game. So from my perspective, I'm going to try and give it more, but I don't know what the crowd thinks about it. I get no feedback in that regard. There's no crowd noise, but I can tell you, I've casted in front of a live crowd. We did the Contenders final in Australia. At a crowd in the Rod Laver Arena, which is where they have the Melbourne Tennis Open, and that was in front of like a crowd of 2,000, and it was my voice going to the crowd as well, and that was probably one of the highlights of my casting career that I've ever had. And that wasn't even like that's just a Contenders game. It's a Contenders Australia game. We're not talking Overwatch League or anything, and that's like one of my best moments just because of the environment, just because of where I was.
Yeah, I also always like I think that's not appreciated a point enough, because we only got to saw it so infrequently. And I will also say, I don't think the experience at the Blizzard Arena, especially during the regular season games later on, when it was hard to even fill that up, and like regulars, like, it normalizes the experience to a degree. If you're, I don't know, like in a giant stadium, then that's a very different energy that crowd gives off, right? And then each homestand has re-energized crowds that also have a different reaction. So I always felt with, for instance, Uber, we have someone that is legitimately one of the best, let's just invent this word, crowd feeders in esports, who's like a guy that feeds off the crowd like among the best in the industry.
Feaster, not feeder.
He's a feaster.
I mean, both. Like, It's like he's like this.
Yeah, he does feed the crowd too, I guess. So maybe it is both. You're right.
He's like this lion that has been put in a cage and put on a vegan diet for like 2 years or like 4 years now, with very few occasions where you get out a little bit of sunlight, and then you immediately see that almost the nature of that broadcast changes. I will always already say, like, seeing him like way back, I think it was either Takeover 1 or Takeover 2. Like, that was already a very different experience. This man was like demolishing tables and stuff. Like,
watching somebody cast is actually so interesting to watch. Like how they move their hands and like how they stand up at certain points.
It's a near
like,
spiritual
if they stand
experience, not gonna lie.
Yeah, it's sick.
I was close to tears when I saw Ubercast the first time. No BS there. Like,
what table did he smash? Did he smash a table?
No, like
what?
he's just,
I don't know.
He was holding down the production table where the screen was like put up on a
right.
and he's just like screaming into it,
yeeting a table.
And then I think that might have been the moment where he said, "Put your headset back on." Maybe I'm mixing things up. No,
that wasn't. That was
Showdown.
Yes. I can't remember.
True.
Where
Yes. I remember my article. I referenced it.
Yes.
Like the Takeover 2 was later.
For some reason, that's what I remember about that event.
And it's like he's rocking back and forth. He's losing his own headset, right, in the process of it, and like, and he's mad at Nox in that moment because he's stealing a map 5 from him or something. And I'm just like, this man is living it right now. Like, it's a different experience for sure, which I think also to a degree translates into the co-streaming experience, where you see the faces of people you respect react to something that's on the screen that enhances the experience to a degree.
Yep. Reaction works.
The entire reaction YouTube.
Yeah, it works.
Yeah,
I mean, that's about.
With simple apes.
I just want to see what that guy's face looks like when he sees this thing. Like that's all React is.
I would pay.
It's relatable.
I would pay a subscription for an AVRL face cam during your casts for sure.
Oh no, I don't know that it'd be that. I would. You actually can get. Well, no, you can't get that. But you at a live event. I mean, I gotta be. How do I say this? Because I'm saying the wrong thing.
Are you setting up your OnlyFans right now? Like, what's the idea?
I'm not starting a subscription for this. But what I'm saying is, for example, when I was actually on LAN at MEO at Melbourne Esports Open, where I did that live final. I mean, the desk. There's a photo somewhere where you see the entire stadium shot, all the people, the massive stage, and then our casting / analyst desk, which is out a little bit further. Obviously, a specific place that the camera shot looks over the stage and the talent. And if you are in the audience, you can actually see the casters. So you would actually see the casters and stuff like that. So you can kind of get that a little bit. So yeah, I mean that's part of it as well. I think the best broadcast, people will tell you, any caster that's done, a large body of work, and tell you that their best product would come from those kind of events and those type of situations. And Uber's certainly, everyone remembers the put your headset back on son moment, and that only happens on a LAN. Like, you need to be able to see a player taking off his headset in an important moment. It's just stuff like that. You can't get that without it. But we are getting more homestands. I mean, Dallas have teased one. Shanghai and Guangzhou Charge will be having them. I think Shanghai is up next in July, and then Guangzhou, I don't know when that will be, probably a little bit later. Dallas are also confirmed to be doing a homestand for the CDL as well. So Dallas is doing a back-to-back there, or like a two-piece in terms of two homestands, which you're a Hastro, you might as well. If you're doing one, you better do both. It makes a lot of sense. Same venue, different weekends maybe. So looking forward to that. We're going to get quite a bit, and then maybe down the line, if things are looking good and people are vaccinated and the world is in a decent place, you could even see. This is again no leak or no promise or anything. Nothing from the league. This is just my own wish list. Is I would love to see a full LAN for the finals.
Close. We're definitely maybe not on track. I don't know, how things are trending, especially in the States these days, but things are starting to open up. People are putting together events, left and right. We are starting to get back to normal. So again, fingers crossed, hopefully we can get to that, LAN season final, because it's definitely something that I've kind of missed out on. Maybe not even necessarily being there, but just kind of experiencing that.
Just go to Dallas, watching that.
I mean, we'll see. Whatever the cards may hold. Who knows? It's an exciting thing.
August. We're doing July
okay.
for Shanghai, Guangzhou August. I would assume so. No, that doesn't mean Dallas is September. That means Dallas could be somewhere in the middle of that.
Just for NA.
You could have an APAC and an NA homestand.
Yep.
Both happening simultaneously. Like that's true. So I don't know. I assume it'll be next to or close to the CDL homestand. I think they'll do it back to back because logistically that makes the most sense.
100%.
Yep. No, for sure.
OP. Hopefully we get there.
Guangzhou,
Right,
by the way,
crossed.
has a great setup as well. I'm not sure if they're already in those facilities. I think that one will also be a sick one. And I don't know what Shanghai looks like, but Charge should be pretty sweet.
Yeah, I can imagine they'll all be pretty good. Like, but this is the first time we had a homestand in China, by the way. Outside of
That's true.
Overwatch World Cup, like stage group in China, that's the only time we've had an event in China. Aside from that, they've all been elsewhere in the world. And we never got to see it last year in terms of the Chinese and the Seoul homestand in Korea as well, which I was meant to go to, by the way. I was meant to be casting at the Seoul homestand. So, this year is going to be the bit. Well, I'm probably not going. I'm not even vaccinated, so I don't know if the casters will. Here's the interesting thing. I actually don't know it. This is me fully speculating, but you actually have like Brand and Sideshow in Dallas, so I don't know if they'll be able to go
maybe.
or not. Maybe that could be pretty cool.
You can understand.
You're
that aside,
dissolving right now in the camera.
Well,
I dig it.
Yeah, that's just me trying to teleport to a homestand somewhere. Engage the teleport. As long as I sound fine. Look, I got a face for broadcast. I got a face for radio anyway, or I don't know. I just said broadcast. So maybe this is better. You can't see me.
I mean, that's the actual corporal form of an Illuminati member. So
yeah.
Yeah.
So let's actually get into back to June Joust a little bit in terms of the actual matches. So we talked, we went over how cool homestand stuff is, and everyone likes that. No one's going to disagree with that, except for people that maybe can't make it. They're a little bit upset. But actual June Joust results. We're not going to get. I don't want to get too deep into every single match and the nitty gritty of all the results, but the main bits and pieces, the bullet points here for me are pretty much. If we start with APAC. Fusion got the boat moving. They got their shit together pretty late in the stage, but they still ended up dropping a very crucial map to the Valiant that ended up booming them out of running for the June Joust entirely. And I mean, there's a couple of ways you can look at that, because one way is like you could just say they probably shouldn't have lost their first two matches in the first place, which is true. You could say they probably should have just won an extra map versus NYXL or somebody in the first place while losing, which is true. But given how the cards were on the table and given the circumstance they were in, even though they lost those first two matches, they, out of the homestand while they're playing online, could just go 2-0, which they did, but they needed to go 6-0 in maps, which they nearly did. And then somehow, at the last hurdle, this was literally like doing a 100-meter dash, and there's just like one pebble, one stone on the track, and you slipped on that, and you crashed at the last meter. You lost to the worst team, where Valiant have only lost 2 maps this entire season. One was to Chengdu in their opening match of the entire season, and the second was now versus Fusion, which is incredible. So all Fusion needed to do was 3-0 the worst team in the league, and they'd be in the knockout, and New York Excelsior would it be?
Yep. Yeah. It feels like a perfect analogy, that old meme format of like the guy riding the bike and he just sticks like the pole into his own spokes and just flips out and like doesn't know why he just nearly died and crashed into a tree.
Are you about to do the meme from Despicable Me that Groot's like, and then we 3-1 the Valiant, and then we 3-1 the Valiant.
Yeah, pretty much. Like it's I don't know if it was a respect thing. It felt even on Control that like they kind of came in playing a little bit aggressive. I wasn't entirely impressed with a couple individual performances.
Here we go. Here's the Reddit comment take.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, exactly. Thresher player, come on. Get us a GM on the podcast.
Which player do you want to fire? Who do you want to bench?
Yeah, exactly. Nobody needs to be benched. It just looked like they didn't necessarily respect the Valiant enough. Or at all. It felt like they were just doing like really silly things that I felt like they wouldn't necessarily do versus other opponents.
We're specifically talking about the map they lost, right? Because the other maps, they just rolled Valiant as you'd expected them to. Like, it wasn't a close series.
No.
They lost one map.
It wasn't. But I think I smelt a little bit of it on control in particular. I don't know why that kind of jumps out. I felt like the tank positioning, especially on Nepal, I think it was Village, really forward for like no particular reason. It felt like ideally they would want to play on the point itself, but they were kind of positioned on high ground and wanted to take these like really pokey engagements against a poke comp, and they're kind of playing these, short range, if memory serves. Like it didn't feel like they I didn't feel like they were playing against a competent team. Like they were just kind of, I wouldn't say they were styling. Like I didn't get that, but there were things or decisions made that felt weird, a little odd.
Can I say that versus Valiant, that should be okay though? Because
it
every
should
other team still 3-0 Valiant with that.
Yep.
100%.
Like,
if there's one team you can style on where you can just like disrespect them and get away with it, and honestly, we wouldn't even be having this conversation if they got the 3-0 disrespecting them, which is probably what they should have been able to do, which was the expectation.
Yep.
Yiska, I don't know if you want to go just yet, but I can tell you, in my opinion, the exact rundown. I'll give you as a color cast, I'll give you the play-by-play of what I think actually went wrong on Numbani. It's not going to take very long, because the map didn't last very long. We had a full hold into a one cap on A, right? So there's not that much to talk about. But I'm not going to get into the other maps because I think the other maps was just usual fanfare. It's a much better team bullying a much worse team, and the much better team can literally do whatever they want and they can't lose, except on Numbani, because there are very specific things that happen on Numbani. Perfect storm of events, and it's Numbani of all maps, which is defender favored on A. Let's be clear about it. Closer respawns on A, and it's a kind of map where attackers can get really screwed in the vortex of losing.
Mm-hmm.
Someone else brought this up on another town. I can't remember exactly who it was, but they said, like, I think they're one of the NA towns. They woke up and like, oh, I see, ZP, and he's like, Fusion lost, and I'm like, yeah, they got full health. He's like, oh, that makes a lot of sense actually, because all that needs to happen is Fusion lose a couple of fights on attack, and then they've been snowballed, and now Numbani attack, it just feels impossible, which is kind of what happened, because they hard forced the typical NA Lucio Moria stuff on attack on Numbani, which I'm not a fan of, not just because I don't like the comp, but I think that doesn't do well on Numbani A, because you can't effectively dive, you can't effectively get to your opponents unless you do some sort of situation where you force your opponents onto the ground, you brawl them on the point, or you actually fast rotate onto them through the back of the map. So they go at the back of the map, they go through, all the hallways on the top. They tried to rotate around. That takes a minute, by the way. It takes a full minute for them to get that in. So we haven't no fights happen yet, but a full minute worth of rotating out the spawn, and then they finally fight, and they slowly lose that fight because picks coming on through. Milan run on the Echoes is one of his good heroes. He's going to get picks. Even if Silver 3 feeds and dies, Milan run's going to get a trade there. Crystal's going to find a headshot, which I think actually happened. And then the respawn advantage for A defender starts kicking in, and boom, Valiant win a fight. Then they have snowball momentum for fight 2. Now their ults are coming online just that much quicker than the Fusion fights. Fight 2 happens. Fusion don't waste as much time. They get into fight 2 a little bit quicker. But this is where Valiant, once again, they have that slight ult advantage. Milan run's going to get a pick. Crystal's going to get a pick. Respawn advantage kicks in. Boom, 2 fights in a row now. Now if you're Fusion, you're like, holy shit, we're about to get held, because you got about 1 minute left. And this is where Fusion, I guess, in my opinion, they start to get a bit sloppy. And also you got to credit the fact that LA Valiant, I think, clutched up pretty big. The players that really needed to do stuff well did well. Silver 3 wasn't just getting instant fragged, and he was surviving. Shou Cheng actually did really well as well. I think Shou Cheng played fairly good. He had some really good moves on the D.Va to get control and boot people off high ground. Just good disruption play on the D.Va. I actually think he's one of the better players on the team. And before you know it, there's a full hold there. And that last attempt, I believe, was it last attempt? There was one attempt in there from the Fusion over 3 attempts overall. One of them gave them 65%. If they weren't going to cap it on that 65%, they weren't going to cap it all. And then they didn't. And then Valiant just needed to slowly work through and not make any mistakes, and they were good. But even after the full hold, you could still believe that Fusion can just hold as well, get a fuller hold, and it's fine, because like I said, defender favored, right? But they fell apart, and just a couple of crucial picks went the way of Valiant, which was bad Fusion. Before you know it, the cap comes through, the map is done, and I'm molding out of my brain, but also I'm like kind of smiling ear to ear as well, because I was like, I spent like half an hour to an hour before the show, like going through all the scenarios, like, oh, this team beats that team, if this map goes that way, then this kind of happens, then that kind of happens, and I was like, the scenario happened, the map actually happened, and I went all over Twitter, like 10 tweets. I'm like, this is what that means. One map loss has completely screwed them. They just needed to not lose that map.
It was so, and I as you were talking, I was kind of looking back at specifically the engagement where they got as much percent as they did. And it was like you were saying, like wrapping around the point, kind of literally walking to the high ground. I think 3 of them get antied, and they finally stage themselves to actually dive onto a target. But even then, they take so much pressure from, I think it's Crystal's Hanzo, that it was kind of actually an ace pick. Like it was actually really intelligent because of how quickly you can just like reposition. Like, yeah, that initial dive might sting a little bit. You might drop a couple people, but your Hanzo's such in a safe position. Mono shield is absolutely obliterated. Hanzo just feels like a Gatling gun against a even a competent Winston player. Like there's literally nothing for that team to do, and they're just kind of like sat on one person when you have Mercy kind of traversing the map so quickly. Going high ground, going low ground. Like it's not only just a defender's favored map, but like the verticality really doesn't play into their favor, and that's kind of what you saw abused on Philly's defense in particular. I think they swapped to the Orisa to try and force them into fighting in the chokes, and then Valiant comes out with like an Ashe. I think it was Ashe Echo, really kind of pokey, just pressuring them down. They force them to the low ground, and at that point, it's just like you give Ashe high ground. Echo's already high ground as it is, but she can kind of rest on low ground for cooldowns and whatnot. And what are you really to do at that point? Like they kind of just got checkmated. That never felt like hubris or overconfidence. It really felt like they weren't, or kind of out of sorts for that map in particular.
They
I
actually
think
got outplayed. That's a legitimate outplay on that map.
Yeah.
Yep.
They actually, LA Valiant actually just beat them fair and square on that map. That's, to me, that's what it was.
Yeah,
100%. And it sucks because I kind of it was the hope, right? Like after 3-0ing Charge, which to be completely frank, I thought was actually more surprising than them dropping the map here. I was kind of wondering what Charge was actually going to look like. I think I predicted them stupidly enough, but them 3-0ing there, it was like, oh wow, this is a lock. Like this should be easy. Like Valiant should be a 3-0, and then seeing that Nobani in particular, it was just tragic. And it's partly the map, it's partly the meta kind of shifting, I think, screwing up a little bit of the practice. Like there's a lot of stars that have to align for Philly to even be in this position to hopefully get into the knockouts, and then more stars align to kind of eliminate them. So I don't discredit them too much, or I wouldn't throw too much shade, but to what you were saying earlier, AVRL, like the fact that you could, I think on Control in particular, I think some of the positioning and some of the macro there was a little bit, optimistic to say the least. But the fact that you dropped
pass only because it was versus Valiant, and you can
play
whatever you want.
Exactly.
That's the only. I promise you, if they lost that match, I'd be on their ass as well. But I give them a free pass because I'm like, well, everyone plays this way versus the Valiant. It's whatever. And they didn't actually lose, so this time it's okay. Versus any other team, I'd be like, yo, you can't do this, man. You're gonna get punished. Yiska, any final thoughts on that? Also, funny Astro teasing. Has he teasing? No, he has actually arrived in Korea. I do want to move on to the other teams for the purpose of time, but any final thoughts on Fusion before we go on to maybe Guangzhou Charge? Because Joe already brought it up.
I think that's just a very normal behavior under like violent hero pools. Like you just have like, let's say the worst team in the league has never less than a 5% chance to win a map, especially under those volatile hero pools, when we still haven't really figured out like what everyone should be running in every single situation. So it's an expected thing, and they probably didn't screw themselves, as we said, in the Valiant game, but in the matches beforehand, right?
Yep, I agree.
It's everything. Yeah, it's like screwing yourself early, and then you had the ability to fix it, and then you screwed that up as well, sadly. But the real story would just be you just shouldn't have lost those first 2 games anyway. You shouldn't have be in a situation where the Valiant could knock you out, and then they did. Made for a great headline though. Made for an amazing Twitter headline, and then watch point headline the next day after was like Philly win, but actually they lose. It's the best. It for the purpose of memes, it was beautiful. Funny Astro is, as I touched on, in Korea now, so maybe sharing time with Toby. Who knows? I don't have any particular thoughts on that one, except for I wonder what's going to happen to both the players, because Toby's been integrated really well. He's also a leadership figure in the team. Oldest player in the league currently, I believe, as well. And Funny Astro's like generally regarded as the better player though, and he's the guy that's been on this team for a bit longer. And who knows what happens. No real massive thoughts on that one. I might skip this one just a little bit just to move on.
Sure.
But I guess the main thing is we won't know until we see. But I think we can all agree it's a good thing that Funny Usher is here. So it's good,
totally.
but we don't know what's going to happen. So Guangzhou Charge, we kind of brought this up already, but they are still in a bad place. They got 06th, I believe, in the homestand, and they were live there as well.
Yep.
And then, fun fact, they actually left like straight away because they didn't play in the All-Star event. Well, their players weren't live in the venue for the All-Star event. So I think they finished their last game.
Just went home.
And then they just went back to Guangzhou, obviously. So they didn't stick around for the third day, obviously, because there's no reason to.
Right.
And they play the All Stars game with their players online, which makes sense. Like I get it, like for a cost reason as well. Like why stick around for an extra day for no reason? They've also had massive coach change ups. Arachnid's gone. Neko's gone. They got extra from their academy team, Ultra Prime, coolest team name I think in esports, by the way. Just personally, I think Ultra Prime Academy just sounds fucking awesome. Personally,
Really? You played a lot with Transformers, didn't you, as a child?
No, I don't mind it. I think Transformers is cool. For some reason, like the whole branding behind Ultra Prime is really cool.
I don't hit that.
It's actually better than the Guangzhou Charge. I wish the Guangzhou Charge would just call Ultra Prime. Anyway, they're getting their coach from their academy team, which is what Spark did. Spark got their coach mentalist from the academy team, and that seems to have worked out quite well for them. And now they don't play Mike Haley at all. I didn't see Mike Haley play single map this entire homestand weekend. Eileen was in full time, and forcing the Genji. So you know, Charge is still on their BS. They're still forcing Genji way too much. That's my opinion. And they just, I don't know, it's just a lot of struggles. They struggle in their coaching line. They struggle in terms of figuring out the meta and what they're playing. They're struggling in terms of their lineup as well because one of their players is just not up to scratch currently and not getting the game time, probably for a good reason.
Unfortunately, the recording broke off here, but I noticed about after a minute, nothing too much was said during it, and Joe continues still talking about the Guangzhou Charge.
Or maybe forcing double projectile in certain metas that it wouldn't necessarily be considered standard, but it's successful for them in a bizarre way. Maybe throwing in the Doom Fist. I mean, obviously, being kind of skilled at that as well. You know, Tracer and Somber coming back next month is definitely going to be a big boon for them. But yeah, it feels like they have to have this big identity shift. I want to see them as much as it's still kind of a thing with Chengdu, but I need to see more. I'd like to see more identity from a lot of these teams, and I think Charge could be a big benefactor in that way.
Like a worse Chengdu.
Yeah, in a way. And I can't blame them because they're still kind of finding themselves, like you said.
And
so
like to me, their roster is a lot of Choi Se-hwan, and he's taken over the roster in terms of he's all over the kill feed, he's all that people talk about, and we just had this long discussion about like, you know, one player isn't necessarily the team, and you know, if we can say that about blaming a player, you could also say that about praising a player. There's
totally
more going on. But it does seem like, and I've looked at stats as well, Choi Se-hwan's up there, man. He's really outputting some stuff. And it does feel like he's carrying the team quite a fair amount, even taking those things I just said into consideration. So this team, right, and Kareev needs to be on Ana as well, because I don't know, man. Like, to me, Kareev just hasn't had the same output on any hero other than Ana. Charge are a very interesting team because they have a small roster, which is fine. I think you can get away with a small roster. You don't need 12 people like Hangzhou Spark do. But, you know, if you're going to have seven players, your 7 players has got to be pretty solid. And as it currently stands as well, you know, Eileen can have some good moments, but it's like Choi Se-hwan and the boys is kind of what the team almost feels like.
Very much so. And they have names on there that you'd expect to be successful. And it's sad that, you know, players like Krong, I think I've been a big supporter of Rio for a long time. Like, I think he's a workhorse. Is he the best main tank?
Right on Sigma. When they played a little bit of Sigma, Krong was like, oh, Krong's back, baby. But then they get off the Sigma comp, it's like, oh damn. Anymore. It's not it anymore.
It's bizarre. They're a weird team because you kind of look at it on paper and you're like, oh, maybe they could be good, and then you look at the rest of the teams and especially how they've been performing, and it's struggle bus city. It's a shame. So again, hopefully they can kind of find an identity, maybe kind of as you know, reductive as this might sound, kind of cheese their way into making playoffs, but but a W is a W. You know, if you
spend a year off in Europe, find your identity.
Yeah, exactly. Just trip around, you know, backpack, you know, soul search a little bit. Hopefully that's what we get, but yeah, it's such a big ask.
Also spend a year off in Europe.
I mean, I spent 34 years off in Europe, and it didn't seem to have changed anything for me.
No effect. No effect.
Give it 34 times the amount of time to find your identity. Surely you found it 34 times. No.
Yeah, it's the Obelix effect, you know. I fell into the pot early in life, and now I'm just eternally changed forever.
Anything from your end on Guangzhou before we go on to maybe another team real quick as we move through APAC?
I think
that NA to go after this.
The weirdest situation for me is their coaching. Like, I don't know. Yeah. Like, even with those new announcements of Neko leaving, and then I forgot the name of the other coach.
Extra.
Yeah, joining. It's like, is that the new head coach, or is it just an assistant coach, or like, who's head coaching that team right now? I don't even know. I have no idea what's like going on there.
It's got to be an interim
thing. The only coach listed. Neko's the only coach listed, and with him gone, there's only one coach on the team now.
Yeah, at least officially.
Because they also let Damon go. Damon was the other assistant coach. He's gone. Right. By the way, this team missed out on a great meme where they could have said, "Yeah, we've got an extra assistant coach joining us," and they didn't do that. So, so you go. There's some marketing. You get a tip
free of charge. Who's even out there that could be a
free of charge? You just described the entire APAC region getting free games, or what?
pretty much. Yep. But is there any obvious one for you that could be stepping in there, like real quick?
I mean, the biggest, and Joe's going to agree with this one for sure. I believe is the biggest like free agent coach is No Hill.
Yeah.
But and who knows? I don't know. I mean, you can bring up the dramas and some other BS behind the scenes, but outside of that, if you want to win, this guy's proven that he can win. So that's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
You know, if we ignore the other stuff that happens, it's not even big. Like, this guy didn't break any laws or anything. He's just said some negative stuff about Chengdu, and that means Chengdu don't like him. And he got dropped by Shanghai and CC for that as well. Even I say he got dropped, but he's still affiliated with Team CC. He's still like a team advisor or something. Even though they had to do the show pony stuff with like, oh yeah, we're gonna drop him, but he's not really dropped. I don't know. I'm not gonna speak for the team. I don't actually know what's going on. So
it would be beneficial.
Out of context.
It would be very beneficial if you grab somebody who's tested and proven that they can win. And then, I'm just saying, maybe with the Mother Goose follows a little bit of a duckling. Maybe somebody, has a little bit of a hit scan. Maybe somebody who we've kind of wanted to see in the league for a long time. Maybe was on the Shanghai Dragons in season 1. Looked pretty good. I'm just saying, maybe Dia comes in. No Hill Dia. Could be big. Could be the move they need.
I thought for a second you were about to say Dia coach. I'm like, really?
Yeah, you're not getting in the league, kid. Just go straight to coach.
That's the message I was getting. Because I think Dia did try out for Gia tried out for all 4 Chinese teams based on what he said, and he didn't get into any of them because they obviously made the choices. Chengdu went with Jimmy, Charge went with Mike Haley, Shanghai went with DM, and that's fair enough, man. Like, fuck, you're not gonna get it over DM probably.
Yeah, for sure.
And who am I missing here? Spark already had Shy and Godsby, right? So that wasn't going to happen. And then he wasn't going to get into the other team. The other team available is LA Valiant, where he was
maybe
like,
we just don't go there. Yeah, as much as they might have liked him, but yeah.
So let's go on to a couple of other teams real quick. For the essence of time, we're going to do these a bit quicker. So NYXL. Rough patch through June Joust. A rough patch maybe through most of the season, actually. For a team, and Yiska is the absolute lord presiding over Scrimbucks. And I heard this as well, and I was triply deep in the source for this one, but NYXL did super well in Scrimbucks preseason, and then never kind of showed it on stage ever. And I had heard some stuff about, maybe there were some confidence issues, some stage fright, even though they went on stage, but, so stage fright in terms of playing important matches. A lot of rookies on the team. Let's be clear. The team is like the opposite of Shanghai Dragons. Shanghai Dragons have got 0 rookies, and we'll talk about maybe signing a rookie soon. But NYXL, a team like there's almost exclusively rookies outside like Jonak and a couple of people. Yeah. So NYXL have been gifted an opportunity by LA Valiant and Fusion, and oh boy, did they squeeze that lemon into lemonade.
Yeah. It's, again, I think this is my big narrative is, like I mentioned at the top of the show, like this is an evolution, and I think NYXL got really early to it, and it felt like the Spark were just out of sorts and dealing with this. Everything has been kind of centered around Gusha in particular, but NYXL absolutely just shutting down any kind of engagement opportunity or any kind of aggressive pressure that any team kind of wants to do to them. I think that should be taken into consideration, especially when we get into predictions. How quickly this team has come in, how consistent they've been across the season. Is this, maybe the ignition, the catalyst to see them kind of really believe or make their Scrimbucks coming into the preseason, known and kind of respected, at least, maybe what they've been showing in practice, right? I don't see that happening. I'm happy to see them finally kind of catch form. I don't know exactly how much stock I want to put into this. They've been a shaky team because, again, like you both said, like we've heard very successful, very, very prominent things from practice from them, and it's just really never translated to the stage.
No,
I think the meta does suit them. It's good that they kind of are. Not only did they have to, it was kind of a miracle for them to get here with Philly dropping a map, but beating Spark, I was ready to write Spark into the finals. Like I published a piece, talking up Dallas, and we'll get to them, but I was ready to write about Spark and be like, oh, here we go, Spark's gonna win it all. Like Shy's too good, all these different points, and then they just look lost. And credit to New York to finding this particular style and actually forcing them to mirror them and beat them at that. It's impressive, and hopefully they can continue this form moving forward, because again, APAC could use another team like this, and if they can again translate it, it'd be good.
That's the one thing where I gotta defend the Scrimbucks here a little bit, because yes, like if I go on Twitter and go like, oh yeah, finally rain whatever, like Scrimbucks woo, like that's bullshit, right? Like I'm not serious when I say this. Like the like whatever comes out of that, NYXL was good for more than one meta in the preseason, right? Like it's this, and the reason they weren't good in stage 1 wasn't because the meta was bad for them. It was because they dropped spaghetti, like the entire time. Like they are chokers in many ways, and I can only like, not to go too far ahead, but I can almost already see that coming this weekend. Like if these guys actually had to go to
the pressure this weekend, dude.
Like I'm just not giving them a map this weekend, but by the mental fortitude that they've displayed so far in this season. So I don't know. Like they are definitely. I think a lot has to do with confidence. Like maybe if they get a series rolling with a 1-0, I think different about this. But yeah, like NYXL was always going to be a good team as soon as they figure out that part of their performance. And in as far as that goes, like Scrimbucks will forever be true. Like it's just
yeah. I'll tack on the Scrimbucks conversation as well, because I'm another person that bought heavily into them. This is not going to be a situation where I come in or anyone comes in and be like, yeah, well, see, the Scrimbucks were correct and stuff like that, because it doesn't matter. The Scrimbucks for me was all about preseason anyway. I did my power rankings for preseason, based on preseason, for preseason. I even put a little caveat that says this doesn't even necessarily have any bearing on the main melee or any future stage for that matter. It's just like, this is only at this exact moment in time for preseason. Who's doing what in scrims? That's literally it, and there's nothing else to do with anything else.
Look at this man using the word correctly of power rankings, like everyone else. Full season power rankings. That's not even how it works. Like everyone's bullshit.
And by the way, Glads went 4-0 and they're looking better and all that kind of stuff. And I predicted Glads #1. It's not like I come out and be like, yo guys, Glads #1, baby. It's like, yeah, they were good in the preseason because they were dominating on dive. And then they had to figure their shit out a little bit later on as the meta evolved. And it's not a prediction. That's not me saying, yeah, Gladiators win the whole Overwatch League. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying who was good in scrims in the preseason. That's literally it. Rant on that over. I'm happy to quickly go through Shanghai and Hangzhou before we go into NA, because NA beckons us. Essentially, I think Hangzhou, they got a bit of a wake-up call. I think it's brutal to lose in front of your home crowd, by the way. I actually went and said that. I said this privately in my own Discord. I was like, yeah, can you imagine how awesome it is? And this was before they lost. How awesome it is for the Hangzhou crowd, where you get to be at your own team's home stand. They're absolutely dominant. They're completely rolling everybody. The best team in APAC, only team undefeated, 4-0. It's like the best moment ever. You couldn't be a happier fan. After that, the next day they lost. And that at that moment you are like the saddest fan, because it's like, actually, this is the most important game. They could have lost to Valiant, which would have been awful, but they could have gone 3-1, lost, but still made it through to the knockouts and into the June Joust, and everyone would forget about it. It's like, whatever, yeah, it's a meme. But to then lose to New York Excelsior, who everyone had predicted they would beat, I don't think anyone predicted New York to beat them unless you are the most die-hard New York fan who doesn't give a shit. Like, you will pred New York no matter what. That's the only person that thinks that New York actually was going to be Hangzhou. Speaking of Joe, to be honest, I agree. Shy was going to be too good, all this kind of stuff. And to me, the real falling apart of Hangzhou happened when I look at Dorado, and that's when I saw Hangzhou give up on their game plan. This is when Shy hops off the Echo. He goes to McCree. Architect goes Echo. At that moment, I knew Hangzhou had given up on their plan.
It's the white flag of the mirror, right? The second you mirror somebody,
they white flagged it. And then I was saying, like, he's got one more shot. Shy's going to go Ash here, and if you can't do it on Ash, Hangzhou are done. And Ash is the hero that made him in this season so far. He debuted on that, and he pounded, and Godsby is like forced into forever bench because of that Ash.
Sadly.
And it's just like, if he can't win on this Ash, it's done. But I think the team was too boomed by that stage to get it done. You spent all your game time with Reaper, Arctic Reaper, and Shy Echo. You don't just suddenly 180 that one and go back to what you did like a month ago. It just wasn't. That to me was the nail in the coffin. So Hangzhou gone out of that. A couple quick thoughts on that one, then we'll do Shanghai, then we'll move on.
It's so sad. I think it was just kind of a complete just opening up, like just diffed isn't the right word, but the right words escape me. It was so shocking. I don't think I've ever been. It's been a long time since I've gone, to bed. Degen hours, goblin hours, as we are kind of staying up for APAC.
No,
these days,
you're just you. Yeah, okay.
Agreed. Am just to me. But it's been since like MVP Space beat Lunatic High. I've gone to bed like questioning reality. Like, did I really just watch that team just get absolutely manhandled like at a macro level? Spark was just out of sorts. Like, credit to the players. I think they're still very good, and I hope to see them. Again,
they'll be back. They'll be strong next stage.
Yeah, but and I can see them being strong, but it was just so sad. Like you said, playing in front of your crowd, getting just like diffed at like the biggest level, the macro level, just the compositions that you're running.
No one thought you'd lose to.
Exactly. Oh, one question I did want to ask you, in particular, maybe memory might not play a gigantic factor, but I felt like IDK's Brig has just been like this rigid pick for him all June long. It's so aggravating. I don't know how he felt like he was getting a ton of value, and I don't think that's him in particular, just like locking Brig and like just like taking it solo. But like even at a coaching level, like I don't know how that Brig does a ton of good for that team, just at like a big picture compositional level. So I wanted to get your kind of thoughts. I feel like I heard you on cast talk about him like not playing enough Mercy and pocketing.
So a couple of things. So what I said on cast was I said there was a specific mirror where I would have preferred if IDK went to Mercy so that they can get higher value out of the Echo. And this was the Chengdu game, where to me it was like Leave has been like to me the number one Echo for a long time, and especially the stage. Pelican's shaking that right now. Pelican might,
sure.
We're not going to see Pelican Leave, which pains me a lot. I want to see that battle. But the Leave Pelican are my 1-2 right now. What order they go on? It's up to you, to whoever's watching. When you can tell me in the comments. I'm not going to read it, but you can tell me. And but to me, Leave was going to diff Shy, and he was going to diff Shy even harder if Shy wasn't going to get pocketed. And everyone's going to be like, "Oh, how is Leave better when he's getting pocketed?" Like, yeah, because you're supposed to be. He's your best player. He's the best Echo. You're gonna pocket him. Why would you not? That's just that's a ridiculous argument. What are you trying to say here? So if you want to beat Lee, you got to get pocketed as well. That's just how it's got to be. And IDK, they were. I don't know if it was. I'm gonna say it was a team. I'm never gonna. We just had this big discussion about individual players. I'm not gonna. IDK doesn't walk in here like
exactly.
You know what, Mentalist? No, I'm not gonna.
I'm only playing Brig today.
I'm playing. I feel like playing Brig, and I don't care what team was. That's not what IDK is doing. It's definitely a team decision. You talk to coaching staff about that one. I think Mentalist is probably saying they're like, this map we play Brig, boom, done. So he plays the Brig, and I think they got. It doesn't give Shy the same level of support to succeed in the Echo role, which I think is hugely important in this meta. Beyond that as well, I had some problems with his rally timings. I feel like he waits so long to rally sometimes. And maybe this is a dangerous comment to make because some like pro Brig player is going to come and tell me like, oh, it was fine. But from my perspective watching the game, I feel like if he rallies about 5 seconds earlier, the team gets higher value on armor.
Reddit moment.
He's trying to get us. He's trying to find his own hill to die
I'm
on.
just like you gotta rally a bit sooner because my favorite term in cast is saying pre-rally, and pre-rally means you rally before the fight.
Right.
You don't rally during the fight. You rally before the fight, just as about when things got to go down, because you want to have built up the full armor value before things actually go down. And you just don't see that with IDK's break, in my opinion. So that's what I was going on about IDK at the time.
Yeah, the rigidity there, I think, really hurt them, and in a weird kind of inverse way, it kind of makes Shy even look that much better because he's playing with such little resources. The fact that you don't see IDK, consistently finding the mercy behind him, right? Like it's that much more impressive when you see people like Leave have all those resources given to him, and still Shy consistently can kind of compete. Maybe not the best, maybe not directly comparable, but to be able to put up the numbers that he's putting up with as little resources. That's a special player.
All right. Anyone surprised about Shanghai? I think that's a pretty simple one. So Lee Jae Gon set a league record for environmental kills and boops. Game that I casted, super enjoyed that game. I was just like, I think there's a call in there. I was just like, how many does he have? I'm gonna check. Yep, it's 10, and it's just like,
I got the number for you. I got the number for you. Yeah.
There's like that top 5. They're beautiful. The Overwatch League top 5 on YouTube, and the number 1 play is not even a play. It's all 10 of Lee Jae Gon is the number 1 play. Yeah, which was great. And then and this is why LAN is so good, guys. And then the actual camera shot of him, and he's got the thumbs up. You got Yiska like popping off on the side, like he's like the guy. When you're like you're doing like a live rapper who's doing rapping, and then the other guy's
got the hype man
in the background. The hype man in the background. He's hype man. He's getting the crowd going. I have no idea what they're saying, obviously, because I can't hear them. But no one can, because I don't think that would have gone out to the crowd. But yeah, it was just a cool moment. Like, what a solid moment, and to just completely diff Soul, who, by the way, Soul played a really awkward comp. We haven't really touched on Soul. We're not gonna, for the audience, we're not going to talk about every single team. There's just not enough time. Otherwise, you're going to have like a 4-hour broadcast podcast here. Soul's comp was not good on that map. Like, why are they playing? Why are they playing a Mei? It's so bad.
We'll get to Mei. I got problems with Mei players, or not Mei players, but teams who pick Mei. We'll get to them.
In a meta where Mei's not like the hero, this is not the meta for Mei. You don't have Prophet on an Echo where that's like one of his good heroes.
Yeah,
that's pretty much all I'm going to say about Soul for now. But Soul obviously got some more soul searching to do, because this stage is also just not it. And I think Achilles. We actually looked at Soul and like maybe Soul can make it in.
Yeah,
Achilles, Soul maybe even going deep as well, because previous to this match, Soul were looking great. The actual homestand was good, but then Shanghai came in and embarrassed them. And so Shanghai, to me now, just like, okay, this is the Impact team once again.
Yeah, this is I have them to kind of not to directly lead into predictions, but I think they are going to be the scariest team in this like Orisa comp mirror because of the threat of Lee Jae Gon. You have to respect the hell out of that boy. You have to cover literally every single ground, cover all the hiding spots. Like, he cannot effectively be behind you because of how much value they get out of those halts. Yes, it's map dependent, but irregardless, I think Shanghai has a lot to show, and the fact that you have such a weird tempo to play, it's going to throw a wrench into so many people's plans. I just to kind of lay that on the line. Soul in particular, I was kind of hoping to see a little bit more Roadhog out of them. I'm not gonna lie, as goofy as that composition was, it was just like, where did that go?
Barfing, dude, you got me retching over here.
I think again, it's one of those weird identities that I'm like, yeah, I don't think it's good, but I think you can like drag people down a la Chengdu. I hate to just like beat them with beat a dead horse, but having something that's truly your own that like you cannot practice for and pepper it in on maps that makes sense, or at least you have a strict game plan for it, it could be successful. And I was actually pretty disappointed not to see that. In the same way with you guys and talking about Soul advancing forward, I was hoping that they could have been that weird kind of Dallas Fuel, like super identifiable stylistic team that made a stab in the playoffs. But fortunately, they got caught by the meta evolution, and apparently Mei was the pick for whatever reason. Just low damage.
Mei in the other games. Like, normal stuff in there were good. Like, I don't know. This is just a Shanghai discussion, by the way. I don't know what we.
Hey, there's such little to talk about. Just because Control literally was just like, oh wow, yeah, this team's just built different. Like, You can literally do no wrong. Like if you want to keep Lee Jae-gon back and just have him play normal, great. If you want to have him as a weapon, like playing as a DPS, setting up halt boops, cool, do that too. Like the on-off switch for that team moving forward, I think is going to throw teams for a loop and make a lot of attacks just painfully slow. If you give them map control and objective control, have fun trying to get it back, because you have to respect Lee Jae-gon to the ends of the earth. And just the threat of that alone, just like holding an ultimate, just showing that like you could do that at any time. There's so many points like that.
It's my tactical crouch official hot take of the week.
Okay.
Boom segment. I think Shanghai have the best teamwork that I've seen in the league so far for this stage.
I'd say so.
Truly do. They're so active. And no, it's not just because Fate and Lee Jae-gon did halt boot combos. It's not basic, but it's just like that's not what it was. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about like just how clear they move around the map, how fast they're at decision making. They're always active. I never look at this team like, oh, they look lost. They look like they're stalling. They look like they don't know where to go. Like they're always moving around. They know exactly where to be. They know how to play this game at a fast level where they just bam, 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 snappy decisions at all times. And every player on top of that is just good. Like Iziaki's having an insane season so far. Lee Jae-gon just hit a league record. He's always been good in my eyes, even though those same plays he does, like I said, versus some other teams, if you get flashbang and you get completely look like a feeder, and that's why he does look like a feeder sometimes. So they got to figure that out. This is the time where he doesn't feed at all, and it's just beautiful the entire way through. The only weak point on this team, and that other people will latch onto, is Fate, and even then, I feel like Fate's Orisa, gets it across the. It's a good pick for Fate.
Yep.
And Orisa's really important in this meta. So I think Fate or Orisa plus the rest of Shanghai being on the right level, they are all gonna be firing, and this is the perfect storm for Shanghai to succeed. So I'm really excited about Shanghai's chances here in the.
I just wish we could see them like this in the regular season, like in the qualifiers, because it feels like they just are so slow to things.
They plan to go 3-1. Remember, they got a dodge.
I guess. I don't know if it's a plan or if they're just slow to adapt to a hero pool or the new patch. It's so frustrating because you don't really know. Again, to kind of touch on a point that we made earlier, like there's so few games, it's hard to get a read. But Shanghai consistently, again, this is the second tournament in a row, they completely turned around. You look at week 1 in June, Shanghai versus now, it's a different team. It's really completely just.
Everyone looked rough first week. When you got a brand new meta, I feel like everyone's just like, what do we do?
Yeah, agreed.
It's also like real talk. If you look at Shanghai at the moment, like you gotta that team you gotta observe a little bit more. But if we're talking about eras, if they win this one and then qualify for the next one and get to a final once again and maybe even win this one, like currently, if we're talking about eras, then Dallas Fuel is in the driver's seat of whatever narrative that is for you. I don't care about your American-centric idea of like only grand finals counts. Like great value to promote there, by the way. Like get lucky on one weekend a year and therefore the entire rest of the year is validated. Yeah, okay. I guess Seoul was the second best team last year.
Look at season 1 for
I mean, London made some sense at least. They won one stage at least, but like the rest is just like I don't know. Like imagine like actually having the ability to get Washington in there after season 2 or season 3 and them just like winning the league that way. Like it's just nah. That's not yeah, I don't like it. I don't like it at all. But like Shanghai, like they are just there, right? And they've always been there. Like low key, if Shock isn't as dominant as they are just like that team all the same, right? Like think of yourself like you have the Mandela effect moment where like the San Francisco Shock are not a team. Then the Shanghai Dragons are the San Francisco Shock. They slot in. You have no problem believing that immediately, right? Yep. And you don't have a problem believing it until now. Because they get into the final of the first one, and they once again qualify for the for this one. I don't know, like this, just same Shanghai almost feels like. I don't think they really slowed down much due to the changes.
Agreed. If anything, they look better.
So last thing to talk about for Shanghai is they've rumored to have developed coming in from Talent Esports, and Shanghai are obviously replacing DM's role. They've already replaced Ursa's role. with Who Are You coming in, who, by the way, got to play a game this stage already. He debuted versus Valiant, which is like, I mean, yeah, if you want to get a game to debut on where you can do whatever you want and win, that was the perfect one. So, cool. Developed, for anyone that doesn't know, by the way, I cast him and cover him in Contenders Korea. Currently, probably widely regarded to be the best hit scan DPS in all the Contenders Korea. There's a few other names in there that are also very good. I don't think Develop's the overall best play. That title still belongs to Proper, in my opinion, and Proper's also got some great hit scan picks. Develop in consistency wise and just what he brings. He's one of the list for a while. He's a player that's Packing 10 had great things to say about. Packing 10 mentioned that Develop was something that he was looking for to join the LA Valiant back in the day, but didn't end up happening for whatever reason. I don't know what the specific one was, but he spoke very highly about Develop, and now Develop is in. And the only thing I'll say about this further is that I don't know how they will integrate him when Lip currently, to me, is like top 2, top 3 hit scan in the entire league on iTest. Definitely number 1 hit scan in APAC. And I'll give NA some credence to say there's definitely players on that level as that are able to do that. But Lip to me is so good so often. I can't see any other hit scan taking game time off him. And I think, getting this guy on the roster for Shanghai just means Who Are You and Developer probably benched until there's either a double hit scan or a double flex meta.
And it's good to have that flexibility. Having those weapons on the bench definitely can provide value as long as you can call upon them and they don't get too bothered by the fact that they aren't seeing starting time. It's useful. It's you can't understand it.
Cool. All right, let's go on to North America now. And NA had a fair few shakeups this time around. Some consistent stuff. Obviously, Dallas are still right on top, as you'd expect. They did drop a game to Shock, though, so not a perfect stage, but as we've learned, maybe that's a good thing. Shock is going to be a big talking point for this part of the podcast as well, because obviously we got a Yiska storyline in his tweet, end of an era, and now that they've lost, we can confirm whether it is the end of an era. There's Gladiators in there who had that 4 stage. Atlanta's another big talking point. Justice nearly came back after a bit of a rough start. Let's begin with should we get into the best? Let's go to the best one first. Let's just start with the Shock. Yiska, where are we at? End of an era? Yes, no.
Yes, because look at what Shock's era is, right? It's a team that from season 2 onward, the first stage, they have not missed a semifinal, have participated in the majority of the finals, and of the majority of the finals that they've participated in, they also won those, right? They are not in the Final Four twice in a row. Yes, the game changed. Yes, there's more volatility in that. There's a team two teams that currently don't care about your volatility and have made it twice in. So there seems to be, yes, there's some, some residual doubt where you think, okay, it could just be variance that both those teams made it in. At the same time, this is now how we evaluate performance in this in this league, right? I don't yes, if it's the three-peat, you will forever be known for the team that gets the three-peat. You will not be known, or should not be known, as the best team of 2021 if you miss the next 2 as well. Now, the end of an era thing, the best reason why this is the end of an era is because there are no 2 eras running at the same time. By definition, that cannot be the case. So, there's 2 teams currently in the front running to have their stamp on it. If it ends up being Shanghai winning this, okay, we delay it and win this mumbo jumbo where it's nobody's real dominance time. If Dallas Fuel wins this again, this is the Dallas Fuel era. Very easy. This is half a season, my dudes. Yes, it has been 8 regular season matches and then some knockout matches. So these guys have played 16 matches so far. That's it. And it doesn't sound like a lot. That's your new league now. Adapt to the changes. That's just how we have to evaluate performance now. It's just how it is. And for Dallas to do it again in that fashion, we just have to accept that their era is not predicated on absolute dominance every time. They start slow. We saw the same thing at Next.
Same with the Shock.
They start slow into a new meta. They hone away at their understanding of it. They come up with something new, also through the limitations that they experience. And then they once again are in the top 4. They're once again, at least in the semifinal. I guess not. But they're once again in the final 4, right? So it is... If they can do it again, if they can actually legitimately win this tournament again, you're smoking good stuff if you don't think they're season favorites by that point.
Yeah.
And B, that is then their era. It's half a season. It's starting. You don't miss the train for me. Please do that. If they make it to a third tournament, let's say they get to the finals here, possibly win it, and then they get to the finals of the next one. They are the best team of the year. I don't care about your evaluation of grand finals.
Talk about Dallas, just for the people at home.
Yes. Yeah. It's just a weird, like, overemphasis on playoff, like, season playoffs that should not, like, be accepted that way. Like, is this how Americans evaluate? Like, everyone does their best, and then someone's lucky at the right time, and therefore they're a billionaire, and now we're all happy. Is that the value culture that you want to transport in your sports? I'm appalled.
You're the American post.
I don't. It is kind of mind-boggling how much impact is put on like that final push. I think it's exacerbated in esports in general, and Overwatch has its fair share of issues regarding that. But I think I agree regarding Shanghai and Dallas and that narrative 100%. Like, if either of those teams, make the same kind of performance, you have to kind of give it to them regarding the current era. But I think I'd caveat or at least disagree with how we're evaluating the Shock. Yes, they're less dominant. This is a completely new team. I think they suffer the most. If I had to be completely honest, it seems like they have moments where they do look very, very good against that Dallas team. Like, they did confidently beat them in that mirror matchup, Dallas's style. They kind of beat them, right? Like, they mirrored them and kind of outplayed them in ways. You get that team, and then you get another completely different team. It feels almost like Philly of old, where it's kind of like this Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. You don't know exactly what you're going to get. And I think that comes from how little we see them week by week. I think we'd get a much better read. Obviously, like you said, new format, adapt to it. But I'd caveat it and say that the era of dominance for the Shock is over. But I think there's a minor asterisk that I'd put on it. I maybe call me soft, call me, fair weather in some instances, but I'm not entirely ready to sell the stocks just yet. I think if given a couple opportunities, we can see the Shock kind of bounce back in a big way.
Well, you're in a situation where, like, we've seen Shock. There's this like kind of Shock magic aura they have around them from previous 2 seasons. What I can say is they built up 2 seasons of goodwill, right? Which means you're willing to be more lenient on them. I think if this was any other team, you'd be like, oh boy, so
they're out
now. And people are starting to feel that way. But there's still a level like, I'm just gonna hold on to stocks for like maybe one more stage here, just see where it goes. And that was literally my thought. Like, what I was gonna come in with was I'm gonna give them one more stage to see if they can be, in the line wouldn't even be. I'm not even expecting them to win that stage. I'm just saying get to Hawaii first.
Yeah,
let's get to Hawaii and see what happens after that. So I'm not even saying they have to win the next stage, and maybe that's just me being too lenient for the Shock. But they've built up 2 years worth of goodwill to sort of get that. But after, I think I'm done giving them chances. I'm done giving them benefit of the doubt because
that's fine. I'll warm up the toilet seat on top of my hill, and then like you guys can try when you want.
You'll clean out that coffin on the hill that we're all going to die on. So
respawn point set up top there.
They're missing a lot, right? Like the teamwork isn't there. It's not what it used to be. They don't have the same level of weapons. Like Glister is not.
I got something to add there as well.
He's not. I don't know what happened. I don't know what Krusty is given to this boy, but it is not the same player. No. I don't get it.
I understand that,
like there's times where I like what I'm seeing. I see the player that I saw in London and Contenders Korea and Apex and years old, but it's not. There's something missing. and I don't think it's just Glister either. I think this team in general is going through like this weird adolescence. It's this people are doing stuff that they wouldn't normally do. Just communication feels like it's breaking down. I thought Smurf had a terrible game against Atlanta. Just I don't know if it's understanding or the meta shifting and them kind of getting caught off guard. It's tough.
Their team has changed significantly. Like everyone has to remember, like this team, it's got a lot of returning members, but it's got a lot of new pieces. And when you have a lot of new pieces, and there's coaching staff changes too. If for anyone, just I'm gonna clear this up real quick. Anyone saying like, oh yeah, there was a coach diff. Clearly the 3 disciples of Krusty that left, and that made the difference. I'm like, no one knows that. Anyone who says another ass, like you don't know that. You don't actually know what the coaches did or didn't do. You have zero clue. You are literally talking shit. That's not true at all.
Especially like the argument, now those coaches also like sort of drop the ball on their respective team. It's like, guys, like it's possible that several good coaches make it even better. Like they don't have to like all be able to do the same they did as one unit independently on every other team, and now we have 5 shocks in league. That's not how it works. It's very easy to see how they just benefited and covered each other's weaknesses, which is, by the way, like a thing. For instance, like last season we were talking, I was talking to people, and like they were talking about how Junkbuck just understands certain metas better than Krusty and covered the weaknesses there. Like that's more likely to be nobody's a complete package, right?
You could describe this as greater than the sum of their parts. When you have all those coaches together, that to me was a shock magic, because you had 4 coaches that could all cover each other, and we talk about 9K and whatever as well. But everyone covered all, and we're good to go. But then everyone's got to go out and do their own thing on their new teams. Coaching aside, though, what I want to say about the change on this team is like something I read today. Because you guys remember Fisher, the Korean main tank, who had a bunch of unlucky circumstances, but he did a review of the Shock, and something he said I definitely agreed on, which is that Shock look like a team where based on the changes in their team, they're not able to just make things happen with immediacy. There's more hurdles they have to get over during the in-game moments, and kind of like the opposite of Shanghai, where Shanghai just look like a well-oiled machine. They don't look like they have to talk too much. That part is me speculating, and I only speculate on that because I don't hear what they're saying. I don't get any comms. But when I see them play and I see how fast they make decisions, I know something's working good in that comms. When I see Shock and how much how slow it can be or how indecisive they could be and other factors, there might actually just be some common errors in there. It's something's going wrong in terms of what people's understanding of what they need to be doing in a team is. I think individually they have great players. I don't know what's going on with Glister. Like you said, he was also benched for a while. I think they got to work out what Glister's role on the team is, because you can't. I think there are some heroes you want Striker on, but I don't know that you want to be playing Striker over Glister a whole bunch when most other teams are now leaning towards just put Kai on, just get that Ashe in that gameplay. You need the solid hit scan. And Glister has to be your guy there. You started seeing you had Violet playing McCree. Like, there should be no way Violet comes into place McCree. He might be good at it, but that's not.
That says a lot.
That says a lot about your DPS players if Violet's your best McCree. When you have 4 DPS players and 3 of them have been known to play McCree. It's wild. I don't know what they're doing with Tayo. Who knows on that regard? This is I describe. This is like the parallels between this team and Shanghai are actually crazy in some ways. I'm not talking about just storylines, but the fact they have 4 DPS per side, where Shanghai feels like they have 4 cracked DPSs, but like just Flitter and Lip are just too good to ever get benched. And Shanghai are fine, but they have the extra guns. Here for Shock, it's like you got 4 guns, but you don't feel like using 2 of them at the best of times. And sometimes you don't feel like using 3 of them, and it's Striker Violet. It's just like, what's going on this team sometimes? Just they're not clicking. FD God is. This is not going to be me talking shit about FD God, because after the conversation we had at the start of the podcast, but FD God has admitted himself, there's been some teething issues that he himself has to get through on this team, and it's not quite there yet. Shock.
They're out of sorts. It's bizarre.
Just generally speaking, it's maybe they had a high moment beating Dallas, but after that, Atlanta maybe just exposed them in a way where you look at Nero as well. Unfortunately, Nero has to go up against one of the best echoes in the league currently, and Pelican really just owned that entire game. Kai and Pelican as a duo were just so fantastic. We'll talk about Atlanta in a second, but to end my thoughts on Shock is just like, yeah, I think this team still just hasn't clicked, and they're still trying to figure it out, which might be really general, but I'll straight up say, I didn't get fully into all the NA games, but just on a more objective side, this is kind of what I'm seeing.
No, I think that's 100% it. I think some of the macro decisions, again, another team that ran May in maps that really don't make a ton, or in situations that don't provide a ton of value. I think there is a thought process behind it, but again, to kind of echo what Fisher was saying, the immediacy is not there. I think in particular the Hanamura, where Atlanta's attacking into them and they literally just throw 3 people and run this 3-3 kind of split. Like Shock just kind of froze and did nothing and then completely snowballed from there. They never got to build any old charge. They never got to compete for the map. They never got to control anything. They got scared. They backed up into a corner. They felt like they couldn't do anything. They already couldn't do anything. They lost the fight. It's a wrap. Like that is not Shock. That is strictly not the San Francisco Shock that we remember from 2019 and from 2020. This is the team that goes in and tries to be aggressive. And you see moments like that, but it's not the whole team kind of committing behind it. And you have to kind of see that. I think, again, the big asterisk for me is that meta evolution. We saw Orisa kind of come in, and I think that's a big reason. Again, we'll get to Atlanta. It's a miracle that they got like their wheelhouse to AT to be able to play this. And Kai playing extremely well, and you can't discredit that. But I wouldn't sell Shock just yet. I'm hoping that they can kind of come back, and this was just a kind of circumstantial, again, playing a team that is getting kind of the best hand possible for them, changing the game, throwing a wrench into things. Maybe practice was going poorly and just kind of affected them. So hopefully they continue to be the consummate professionals and come back in the next one.
I'm gonna be a moron and sell when it's low, and I'm not.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
sunken cost.
What we're going to do is we're actually going to save discussion about Dallas and Atlanta for the actual preview of the tournament then, because we're going to move along to we'll do a combined thing on Justice and Glads right now, especially Glads who went 4-0 and kind of did they get maybe unlucky on their side because they lost to Dallas? Maybe this is a little bit of Dallas discussion as well, but Gladiators had I would say a stage where they were expected to 4-0. If they don't 4-0 this one, it would have actually been kind of weird. They actually that included beating Atlanta, by the way, but maybe that's a different version of Atlanta because Atlanta didn't really step up to me like massively until the actual knockout. But Gladiators came in and looked much better, but still ends up going down to Dallas. And then you have a situation where, and I think it's good to bring up the Justice, and there's a lot of teams in here. We're not going to get through them all. Mayhem got eliminated by the Justice, so there's a little bit of Mayhem conversation there that could be had. But essentially, for me, Justice. Really rough start. Decay was missing. I don't know that this is just like the Decay is the be all and end all of the team, but at the same time, it's hard to discount the fact that when he did come back and you start to see the Decay difference even on a hero like Reaper, and then suddenly Justice are connecting again, but it's just too late in the season.
For me, the Justice, like when you go back and look at that Paris game, they look so uncomfortable on that ball composition that we kind of started this archetype with like the Echo Reaper, and I think it was like Mercy. I think I wrote it down. Regardless, they look so uncomfortable, and it feels like it stems from Mag. Like I'm not as comfortable kind of commenting on particular Wrecking Ball playstyles, but I definitely see the fluidity of somebody like Gaga, where he can kind of do this. I'm calling it like the 2-step Wrecking Ball engage, where you kind of swing behind them, set up, then engage from like an off angle, or you just like directly hard engage. Like there's there's just crossroads with Wrecking Ball players, and it feels like Mag in that first week of June could only play the 2-step. Like it was very telegraphed, and I think Paris accurately punished it extremely well and playing very well. With those 2 weeks in the books, I was ready to see them kind of play this Winston variant where they could just take a Lucio speed boost, run somebody down, call a Nabe, and just kill them, right? It is kind of reductive, but it is simple, right? Like there is kind of an elegance to just running it down, just rushing somebody and brawling it out and kind of just deathmatching. And that's what we saw, and that's exactly what I wanted to see for this team. Make it, kind of keep it simple, being able to integrate Decay it sucks that we don't get to see them in the knockouts, or at least, going to Hawaii, because I think they could maybe adapt and throw in some Marissa. Maybe the practice wouldn't have been fantastic just because it's so late and they're practicing other stuff earlier in the month, but it was so rough to see them early on. And I think they did pick it up, and that's fantastic. And it's not like a team that we can kind of completely write off, kind of like the Glads at this point. Still have some juice in the tank. So again, excited to see the Justice. I think they adapted and kind of regrouped very, very well. So credit to the coaching staff.
Yeah. Now, the thing is, okay, where do you guys? I'm interested, because in my mind, like, there's no way this is not connected to Decay, right? Like, for the Justice in particular,
I don't think it helped. I wouldn't say it's like a soul thing. I'm not saying that's exactly what you're saying.
I feel like it's almost a soul thing.
Really?
Yes. Like, I feel like this is a. It's not that he necessarily has to transcendentally carry like he did in previous teams. Therefore, like,
Sure.
his team is just too good for that kind of a performance. Almost like deadlifting type of things happen.
Yeah, it's like a confidence thing for you.
I just think, dude, like, if you have probably the hardest hyper carry in the history of the Overwatch League, at least in the last 2 seasons.
Sure.
And
I
he's
guess it's
not
arguable.
in. It's a difference of pace. It's a difference of confidence, and it's a difference of outcome. Like,
Yeah.
the magic that we're now missing from Shock that Arn's used to deliver, Decay always has that stuff. He
Agreed.
always pops off in that way. Like, this kid has so few off games, and honestly, like, dude, if Decay was in the Overwatch League earlier, and he had a more solid, like, team or like a more solid career in terms of the teams that he joined, he might as well, like, I might as well be simping for him as I am for Profit for most of the time, right? Like,
Yeah.
I think, like, if you talk about highest talent in the Overwatch League, most talented player, there's only like 3 or 4 names you could realistically mention, and Decay, for my money, is the most talented player we've ever seen in Overwatch. Like, yes, you could say Violet, even though I think there's a lot of grind in there, and now I'm also, like, sort of wondering where that's going. You could definitely say Alarm is a name that pops up for me, Fleta is a name,
Sure.
but, like, at the end of the day, Decay in many ways is the new Fleta. Like, what Decay did on Dallas is not that unlike Fleshlocks.
Okay. Yeah. I see what you're saying.
In a different world, I call it the Decay deadlift. Basically,
Yeah.
it's even
Not
an
too far off.
alliteration, Like, it could have worked, but yeah, I don't know. I think I'm on the ATIQ point of the distribution where I'm like, just play Decay lol with a caved in hand. Like, that's my take here. I think it's almost a transcendental difference, and I think we will almost reliably be able to observe that throughout the season whenever Jerry's in.
100%. It sucks too, because I do like Jerry. I think he is, relatively above average when you can kind of compare him to the rest of the league. But I think I'd be lying if I said that the Washington Justice had the same kind of lethality in these team fights, where maybe they come back from an early pick, or they just explode onto a team and just absolutely decimate them, or find picks that they should be getting because of Decay on certain heroes, right? Like, there is a sense of just a superstar player that is missing, and yeah, it could be a confidence thing, it could be a pace thing. Like, there is something to that where you don't have your star in.
It's hard to discount the fact that, this is, I hate to speculate, but it's hard to discount the fact that, when he did come back in, the Justice were, they looked like a reinvigorate, because there's more running behind the scenes. It's not just like, oh, Decay's in time to win. Like, obviously, as a team with the coaching staff and everybody, they would have worked really hard behind the scenes, during the small break between their 0-2 to then, getting some wins on the board again.
Not just an 0-2, right? Like, it's like they went, like, Valiant to almost Shock beating real quick. Like,
They were bad.
That's why I'm saying that's why I'm saying it would be like a Pepega take. It should be like, oh yeah, Decay's in, so they win. Like, it's not just that either.
Yeah.
But you also can't discount that Decay coming in would have had some factor in it.
Mhm.
I'm gonna finish up by saying, like, I don't know. It's hard to comment just because it's so speculative what's going on behind the scenes. My own speculation would be that the team probably this is, again, I'm no source, and this is just what I'm speculating, is that the team likely did actually believe Jerry's hit scan was on the level
I
where
agree.
he was going to start, and then they benched the K for Jerry, and then they started changing it up. I also say that, like, as far as carrying power and superstar power goes, like, Reaper's not the pick, man. Like, I know Reaper's
No,
probably not the pick
not
that
at
you're gonna
all.
like hard carry on. So yeah, there's just some there stuff there going both ways. We're gonna move on to the actual June Joust expectations, predictions, stuff like that. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to talk about some of the other teams. There's way more teams in NA and in Overwatch League in general that we're just not going to have time to go over. So just going over the bullet points of, what teams, especially the ones that kind of made it towards the end and how those went. But maybe in a future episode we'll be able to go back and go over some of the other teams. But for now, I think actually moving through the June Joust bracket is going to be quite interesting, because you have Dragons, Fuel, Rain, Excelsior, and we're also going to be talking about our own Pickems in terms of who we think is going to be making it forward. But for my money right now, I'm big on Shanghai Dragons, but I am concerned about where they fit in this versus, I think, the Atlanta Rain. You might have thought maybe the Fuel. Not for some reason, I'll tell you the reason. For me, Fuel, I think, have a strong aura about them, and they feel like a team that is just going to be able to force something and make it work in this current meta. And the two metas between APAC and NA are going to crash, right? But to me, Dallas don't have the flexibility. And I remember I've seen some text be like, "Oh, Shanghai don't look like they're flexible because they're not playing the Moira Lucio." It's like, because they don't have
They
to,
don't need to. Yeah.
because they're playing the higher skill ceiling comp. They're playing the actual DPS centric comp. They're playing the Annas and stuff like that. They're playing the type of comps that aren't just the kind of, I hate to say it, but like the easy composition. And
Yeah.
look, I've talked to people that part of the reason why Lucio Moira as a composition start to really get some traction is because it's easy to execute, and when you have limited time to get a meta to figure out the meta and get stuff going, and you only got 4 games to figure it out, you got to play what works and what works early. You're gonna get the ball rolling. I think Dallas had some hand in determining what NA meta was going to be, because they were the best team coming in, and other teams are gonna. I'm not gonna say that teams copy them necessarily, but they would have been somewhat influenced by Dallas, some heavily, some less so. But when the best team does something and they're winning because of it, hell, you might go along that. And Dallas play that comp because it suits them the most, because they don't have a hit scan. Pine's not here. He's not going to be here till next stage. He's playing the 1v1, but he's not going to be playing in a single game in the actual June Joust. Because I know fans have been like, "Oh, do you think Pine will play because the ping difference won't be this bad?" It's like, no, he hasn't scrimmed with them at all. This would be an awful time to introduce Pine. Dallas, they're currently doing something that works for them, and they're going to keep doing it until it doesn't work or until they lose. And I think that might happen here. I think Shanghai have a better shot at winning June Joust than Dallas do, simply because if I don't know how much Shanghai practice Lucio Moy, but I don't suspect they'll need to. I think their teamwork is looking phenomenal, their individual mechanics are looking phenomenal, and they're playing the higher skill ceiling composition anyway that really, has the higher output. And when you start to see that clash of metas, and it's not just because I'm APAC caster and I'm more aligned with APAC in general, although no doubt there's going to be some small part of that. I just think the APAC meta looks, from a skill perspective, way too powerful. And there's no way a smart team like Shanghai with great decision making is going to fall prey to just like having your main supporter dived every fight and just not doing anything about that.
I think it's tough because there's a lot of like narratives that I feel like have some basis at analysis, right? That are kind of colliding here. When you look at the ease of execution versus like the more skilled comps, I feel like the more skilled comp is the Orisa, the very slow style. It's kind of what I expected to see kind of coming into this hero pool. It's actually surprising that it's taken this long. But I think that evolution has been so late that I am questioning a lot of these teams, literally barring Dallas Fuel, on how well they'll be prepared versus, again, the best team at this particular style. When we look at the history of Overwatch, it feels like there's a repeating point to be made that the team that is the most stylistic, that is the best on the day, is the one that kind of advances at least deep. Won't say win, but advances kind of deep into the tournament and performs very well. And I do see that with the Dallas Fuel. Shanghai, I would agree that I think they're going to be the best team at this Orisa Mirror. I think they have so much going for them with Lee Jae-gon being an actual weapon, right? They not only do they have Lip, right? Let's look at the little lineup of weapons for this team. This arsenal, right? You have Lip, who can play pretty much everything, who arguably looked like one of the best tracers in Melee. Now he comes in, looks fantastic. Fleta, I don't think I need to speak too much on that. You have Izayaki, who's just pounding on any hero you kind of put him on. Having, like you said earlier, having a fantastic season. And then Lee Jae-gon just being such a utility for this team to be able to just threaten. In particular on Orisa mirrors. I do not think it's going to be close if they play teams like NYXL, teams like Atlanta. The issue that I have is the fact that they play Dallas Fuel early. If you lose to the Dallas Fuel early, you have to play through. I have them playing through the lower bracket. I have Dallas Fuel winning 3-1 against Shanghai early, and then you go into the losers final, right? You have to play back to back. So you have to prepare for 2 completely different styles. If memory serves me, correct me if I'm wrong. YouTube comments, please do. So you have to play against a completely different style, a completely different tempo, different heroes. Like I see where Dallas can be fallible, especially on Escort. When you look at maps like Junkertown, Rialto, Dorado, you do need a hit scan there. Like it's not a question.
Yep.
You cannot cover that much ground. You need somebody to sit back and kind of plink. They're finding relative success with some Genji. I wouldn't be surprised if they knock out a Pharah, especially on Dorado with the old, wraparounds. But that's where I see Dallas being fallible.
Correction.
Yeah,
I'll let you finish in a sec, but you don't play back to back on the final.
Okay.
Day. You play.
Fair
you
enough.
play the finals on its own day.
Good. That's definitely.
Yeah.
That's good.
Continue.
That definitely.
With that in mind, continue.
Yeah. It definitely provides a boon to Shanghai because if they had to play back to back, that those 2 different styles, it's such a big ask for them to be able to play back to back. But the fact that they're not definitely plays into their wheelhouse. I still rest my laurels on the fact that this is a Dallas Fuel team that has a lot of momentum going forward. The fact that they're last champions, the fact that they're coming in with a very dominant style, the one that they're the best at, and you have 3 other teams that are prepped very similar compositions. I feel like Shanghai is the other team in the final. I think it's going to be a repeat of Melee. I just don't know if Shanghai is going to find enough practice. As much as I would agree, I said the same stuff last year, or not last year, but last month, right? I respect these coaches. I respect these players enough to be able to beat this. You know what they're coming in with. You should be able to beat it. It didn't happen last month. I don't know that it's going to happen this month.
Do we have your Preds, by the way? I don't know if we can get that on screen or anything. Do we have
to kind of run? Yeah, brief bracket rundown. I have New York going 0-3 versus Atlanta. This is a style. This is a confidence clash. I have Atlanta, being this kind of abrasive, super confident, almost hubristic team. Versus
you got on screen, or whose is that?
That's AVRL's.
Oh, that's mine.
I don't know if mine are up. My Pickems has been weird, but
we'll leave mine out for now because people get confused with Joe's face there and my Pickems. Just go through your Pickems. I'll go through mine in a second, or we can do them in whatever order while we talk about our thoughts and our justifications on why they go that way. So you've already kind of justified your thoughts, but just go through what you
just
think
the bracket. I get you. So the entire bracket, this is the way that I have it. I have New York going 0-3. To Atlanta advances. I have Dallas Fuel winning 3-1 over the Shanghai Dragons. The Dallas Fuel advances. Going to the losers round 1, I have the NYXL dropping 0-3 to the Shanghai Dragons. Dragons advance. Winners final, I have ATL going 1-3 versus Dallas, taking a map, probably Escort. Dallas advances to the Grands. ATL loses to the Orisa Mirror versus Shanghai. A lot of the same reasons I mentioned earlier. Shanghai advances to the final. Dallas beats Shanghai in the grand final 4-2. That's my bracket.
Yeah, not that different.
Do you next, Yiska, or should we go? I don't know.
You go ahead.
So, I already brought mine up. So it's pretty close. I'll justify it as we're talking through it. But I agree with you on the New York Atlanta rain part. I think New York have been gifted a real huge opportunity to get into this tournament. But I don't know. I haven't seen enough. They beat Hangzhou. But it doesn't give me enough just yet. I'm willing to see if they can do more damage. But Atlanta are looking really powerful at the moment, and I have a lot of confidence behind Atlanta coming into this, especially just how good their DPSs are, notably. But this is a team that's shown multiple colors as well. Atlanta has shown the capability to play typical NA Lucian Mori stuff, but they can also play some double shield, and they can play the Gator Orisa. The Gator Orisa has been pretty famous for a while. And then on top of that, Kai Pelican they're mega strong. Dallas, Shanghai, I actually have Dallas winning this one first. Similar to you, I think Shanghai come to the low bracket and win this tournament. So, Dallas beat Shanghai, but I think it's going to be close. And maybe Shanghai. This could be some figuring out what teams are going to do. Dallas are the type of team that make you play their style. By the way, Dallas is the type of team that make you play into their game. It's kind of like the opposite of Chengdu, where it's like the same in terms of they make you play the game, but Dallas is just like the type of team that makes you play the game at a point where they're the ones winning. Instead of like, we're going to play Torb and you got to play against this Torb, it's more like, no, we're going to force this particular meta that we're winning on because we're dominant, and you got to figure that out. And I'll say that Shanghai don't figure it out in the first game. We go to winners final, where Atlanta, I have beating Dallas. You got to be surprised by the result. I don't know. I'm 100%. I haven't locked in. I might change that. I might give Dallas more maps. But I think Atlanta, to me, have a stronger read on what I perceive is the stronger meta in terms of your DPS output. I think Kai Pelican will not be stopped here. I think Kai Pelican outperforms Sparkle Doha by a crazy amount. Pelican looks better than either Sparkle Doha on Echo, most important here, most important DPS in meta. And on top of that, Kai is just going to be untouched. You have no Pine on this team. You have no hit scan. You have no way to deal with Kai whatsoever unless you just straight good booger smoke dive there. and I think Atlanta are going to be ready for that. I think Atlanta, they understand how Dallas are. They play in the same region, probably have scrimmed them, probably have experience with Dallas. They know Dallas. They're not going to be caught off like Shanghai won the first game. I think Atlanta will have Dallas downloaded, and that's why I got the 3-0 here. I think Kai Pelican will not be touched. Kai especially will not be challenged, and Pelican's a better Echo. Where they will be challenges on the other positions, but I think specific meta wise, Atlanta have got it figured out. The only way Atlanta loses if Atlanta give up on that and they just play like some Reaper stuff and they try to mirror them. If they try and mirror, I think they lose. So I'm gonna be really upset if they try and mirror. That may just go to Atlanta. That stage, Atlanta threw not me. I made my pred based on them playing Echo Ash. Okay, that's my caveat. If they lose in Echo Ash versus Dallas, I'll shut up. But I think they're gonna win. Shanghai beat New York. Same reasons. I don't think New York are just good enough in this tournament. And Shanghai looking too good. I have Shanghai with a 3-0 versus Dallas as well. And the reason why I have that is because, first of all, Dallas will have to play the losers bracket in the same day. So does Shanghai, to be fair with you. But I think Atlanta exposed Dallas. Shanghai learned from their own loss versus Dallas. And then they also exposed Dallas even harder by going down the same road. Lip Flatter, too powerful on the DPSs. Lip will not be touched on the hit scan. And once again, Dallas not having Pine, they're going to get exposed for not having a hit scan. And then it's going to be Atlanta-Shanghai Grand Finals, where I think Atlanta are going to do super well. I'm backing Shanghai because I think they're the more well-rounded team that have figured it out more and have better team play. But I think Atlanta are going to be good here. I think Atlanta don't go home without taking some maps.
Wow. Okay. I like the spice.
I got a bit going on in terms of how I think the pathway works.
Sure. I like it though. I'm excited. ATL has the confidence. This team's coming in feeling real good. You saw it was beautiful to see them kind of pop off with those player camps. It was nice to see. I think they're deserved, finally a tournament run. So maybe they could do it.
Yiska's Pred's on the table now. The Pred. Before we do that, can we just say Yiska is like third equal globally for Preds right now? So
yeah.
Whatever
Scrimbuck's paying off.
This is probably the real god Pred, whatever this is.
I mean, to be fair, there's a chance I will probably shift some map scores around. I feel pretty good about tendencies, even though you will see the Atlanta Dallas game. I don't hate you having Rain win that win a bracket final. My thing is, I think the fact that there's a day between the first round and the second round is large. Dallas can definitely just after their match against Dragons, just sit there and download that VOD from the match against the NYXL. Problematically, they won't be proven, tested much. So you won't really see the pressure points as much in the match against the NYXL. But the ability of that team to adapt to those situations seemingly on short notice is pretty incredible. So yeah, I don't hate having being high on Atlanta. The thing is, in the back of my mind, I feel like, despite what I said before, I feel like there's a possibility where NYXL just catches wind. And therefore, beats them in the upper bracket final. That's the annoying part. When you have not that good team in a
Who can't just win?
NYXL. If you have a team that's not that good in a knockout bracket, there's still a possibility that they will deliver once, either in the upper or lower bracket, and will just ruin your experience. And they are experienced ruiners, dude. Like, I can already feel it that I'm molding, that I'm not winning Preds because I didn't give them a match or something. Mm-hmm. But, like, other than that,
Okay.
I mean, more so than the correct Preds, I feel the pain from the one that I didn't get, you know? Like, that's really the one that haunts. So, then, the thing is, like, the winner bracket final is tricky. Mm-hmm. And I don't think they will meet them on equal grounds. I think that would be stupid. I also think...
Put it on screen, by the way, if you can.
Yeah.
There it is.
I think, like, if there's a team that has the ability to just, like, circumvent or patchwork around the arguably best adapted team to the most dominant meta composition currently is, I would agree to that just because DPS seems to be so important and Echo seems to be so busted when Tracer and stuff is banned, that this is a really dangerous team. That said, I mean, statistically, honestly, Fleta isn't much worse than the other Echoes in this tournament. So I feel like this is harder to predict than May Melee even was, and I didn't get much but the final correct there. I feel like the final, once again, if those two teams get through the final, I think it's once again over for the Dragons, and they probably won't have a chance. Like, you don't want to get Dallas Fuel in the best of 7, basically. I think that's always going to be an uphill battle for you this season. This is just a team that has, for a long time now, proven to have the ability to ramp up from a bad start into a really powerful finish, right? Mm-hmm. By unorthodox methods, mind you. True for Next, true for May Melee, true so far as we can judge by June Joust.
True historically. Look at Element Mystic.
Right.
Doing their own thing.
Right. So, I don't know. In my mind...
okay.
You have an objection?
In your mind, Fuel are going to take this because of all those factors you listed.
Yes.
Joe, before you come on, I've got some counterpoints.
Sure.
Real talk right now. This is going to be another hot. I don't think it's even that hot. I think it's just true. I think Fuel are a bit of a one-trick team.
Oh,
look at their comps.
Yeah.
Sorry, did I add an S on there? Let me take that away. Look at their comp.
Well, have you know they played Aritha and Junkrat on one the Temple of Anubis?
Okay, right.
Yeah. Like I projected myself into the YouTube comments there.
What I'm saying is, like, how I don't see. Look, the Lucio Moira would have to be the god meta. It would have to destroy every meta to the point where Shanghai have to mirror them. At that point, I got you. Fuel win, 100%. If Shanghai have to mirror that comp, Fuel win, no doubt about it. They are the best team on that mirror. There's no arguing me out of that one. But I just don't think it's going to be the case. I think ATL and Shanghai exposed them on that, and they have no flexibility. How you want them? How do they make a long 7-map series go? A first to 4 go when it's just like, oh, Lucio Moira doesn't work. Do we have a second option? No. Okay, well, I guess we lose then. Is there? I'm sorry. Is there another composition we can play? I guess not. I guess there just isn't. Whatever. And that's literally the end of the story.
I mean,
they cannot play hit scan. They cannot play hit scan. It's not going to happen. Like they will not. And you're about to tell me, oh, they'll work something out. They'll bring out a Symmetra, or here comes the Junkrat again, or some other thing. Oh, they'll bring out a Torb. I'm like, if that's all worse than Kai Pelican fucking you hard, because they're both great players. It's every option they have is going to be worse, except for bring out your own top tier hit scan, which they can't.
Agreed. And I think that's
by the way,
why
I'm not 100% if that's true either. Like, if theoretically speaking, I mean, okay, I don't know in what condition Pine is in, but theoretically speaking, if you ever wanted to play him in a match, that would be this weekend because the ping is feasible.
They would have to bring out early. They would have bring him out.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll say this much. Sorry, I know you want to talk, Joe.
No, you're good.
if they bring out Pine, it would have to be early and there had to be integrated strategy. If they do it out of desperation, like, oh, we have no options.
Sure.
I guess all we can do is do the Hail Mary Pine.
Yep.
They've lost. That is
Agreed.
I agree.
That's the nail in the coffin. That is like Hangzhou Spark saying, "Oh, I guess our team plan doesn't work.
Yeah.
Throw it into the fan. Time to have the shit hit the fan. Bring in Pine. Like that's not going to save you. I'm sorry, it's not.
I'm a little confused by you guys saying they have one comp. Didn't they very clearly change up their playstyle already across the cycle? Like, didn't they almost? Is it not basically canon? Canon? I'm not sure. I'm German.
Yeah.
Please, please,
Yeah. You're good. You're good.
That they saved strategies for the knockout stages.
What strategy are they going to save?
Fine.
What strategy remains here?
Time. The one thing they have.
This is the showmanship of Rush that I totally believe would be feasible.
You can't just say they're saving a strategy. Like there's a finite number of strategies that can be, unless there's something in here that no other team has figured out in this meta. I'm talking, it's not Lucio Moira, it's not a guide, it's not double shield, it's something totally different. Like they're playing Symmetra Torb, and that happens to be the god meta that no one figured out. You cannot
kind of already pounded on Doom, right? Like
teams in the league, and only one team got it, and only at the end, and they didn't even bother using that in the regular season for some reason. Yeah. And they only decided to bring it out now, and that was the god comp. What, they didn't use the god comp until now? Come on,
that's some anime storyline shit that like isn't.
I mean, that anime protagonist. I know that the protagonist.
It doesn't have to be god comp. It just has to be the comp that helps them the most, right? Like they. Like they didn't win May Melee with the best meta composition that was available, just with the one they could play.
Agreed. But it is so different though. Like the high skill ceiling, like Orisa base, very slow, almost bunkery, sure. With double shield elements to it. If you so chose to run that iteration, there's a lot to love there.
Can I clarify? I am predicting based off the expectation that Lucio Moira fails.
Yeah.
Because if it doesn't fail and Shanghai have to match, I never said this, Shanghai lose.
Yeah.
And if Lucio Moira is the god comp of this meta, they win. Just pack it up. Every other team has done. No team in the league played 19 matches in a row. Fuel just win that mirror. Okay, fine, I'll give you that. But for that to happen, Lucio Moira has to be the god comp. And I'm saying I don't think it is. That's all I'm saying.
Does the ease of execution not sway you just slightly? Tournament day, maybe little jizzers?
Only if other teams don't execute. And I think Shanghai are level where they fucking execute right now.
Agreed.
They're executing 100%.
What
I've been seeing out of Shanghai, I'm like, yo, this team they're connected. Like they are slick.
That's the concern. They're the concerning team for me versus Dallas, where it's like if there's a team that's going to like diff them and just like open them up like a can of sardines. I don't know where Dallas gets their sardines from, but apparently they do. Like that, Shanghai's the team to do it. Atlanta, I feel like, has a very clear path to like beating them, where versus Shock, it felt like Pelican literally did not get looked at. And no, I'm not talking about like that highlight clip of him on like Hollywood, like hiding behind the bus, just like it really was. It kind of felt like the entire like Kai, I think, played well the entire stage, but Pelican in general, I do wonder what that team looks like if he isn't allowed to just run these like crazy flanks. I don't even think he's playing with that many resources. Yes, there's a Mercy on the team, but I think there's like equal time spent between boosting Kai and boosting Pelican. That's not to say that I should be discrediting their tank line. I think they're literally playing the comfort of comfort picks for them. Like this is some My Pillow type shit for them. Like this is the wheelhouse that has been gifted to you. They are a dangerous team 100%, but I am kind of hesitant to give them like such a dominant victory with how much room Pelican got to play with in the knockout stages. So I agree. It's a one-trick pony.
I created that room. I'm going to say that when you have two major threats, someone's going to create room for the other player, or you're going to half-ass pressure onto both, and you're not going to pressure both. In a fair way. So I think it's a situation where Kai was doing so much, Shock had to put the pressure on him, and that allowed Pelican a lot of free room. If the opposite happened and they put all the pressure on Pelican, Kai would have the free room. One of them is going to go unchecked, is what I'm saying.
Totally. I think Pelican does. I agree. I think Kai gets to open up the map and be that pressure that Atlanta needs. But I think there are ways for that, like very easy to execute composition that's very deathbally to at least zone out Pelican. So yes, there might be space to work with. But I think I can see Pelican taking a lot of early picks. And it's not to discredit, Dallas Fuel. I think they aren't going to have brand new god compositions that they're going to unveil in some, Machiavellian style, ploy to, hide strats. But, the Doomfist has been hard to answer. There's a lot of tools that have just been wiped off the table because of hero pools. That is going to shift teams around. I wouldn't be surprised to see an Ana come out of them. If things get a little too dicey, specifically with the Doomfist, I wouldn't be surprised if Genji came out on Escort. That could throw some. I think it's reaching to say a wrench in this situation, because I'm giving basically every Escort map to the other team. They can't mirror. They can't play hit scan. All three of those maps, Junkertown, Rialto, Dorado, hit scan thrive in those situations. So it is a tough.
Dallas get diffed by Glister when Glister had that one kid Dorado and he completely wrecked them.
Agreed.
That's when I knew that at that moment something in my head clicked and I was like, holy shit! I think Dallas can get exposed here, and I think that can and will continue.
Yep, it's a tough ask. I think it's going to be impressive if they do it. But I'm leaning on the historical relevance of styles being very, very important. I think Shanghai is the only other team, though, that really kind of gives them a run.
Article? What is this?
That's me. I showed my hand a little early.
That's yours, Joe. All right,
Yeah.
So you both have Dallas winning, and I have Shanghai winning to close it up. This is where we're going. Okay,
Yeah,
so
I think it's another one of those early games.
I kind of wish one of you guys went for Atlanta, but I think I'm the one that.
It's so hard. I can't.
I can't, dude.
I've sipped a lot of Atlanta. I've sipped some Atlanta juice, but at the same time, I don't know. It's like I think they can't. I don't think they beat Shanghai, because Shanghai have Shanghai are going to be the opposite of Fuel. Atlanta's somewhere in the middle, and Atlanta is. I don't know if they can play either of the two styles as well as the two other teams on the other two sides.
Yeah.
Is I think the ultimate issue here. So yeah, pretty happy with that. Pretty happy with my first episode as a proper member on the show. Also my last episode with you guys. So
Nice.
178. It's good. And we covered pretty much everything. I think this is going to be an extremely good run of a tournament. I think I'm more excited about this one than May Melee, just because of how close things could be.
Yep.
Even though I've kind of got less faith in NYXL here, I would love to see them do great here. I really want to see them do well if possible. Flora's been looking great, so maybe Flora can be the guy that makes a difference.
Are you casting any?
Nope, I'm not casting any. In fact, I'm not even casting Overwatch this weekend. So it's even worse, which means I can't even co-stream or watch June Joust live, I don't think. So there'll be some VOD catch up at some stage. But I can actually watch the final live. So I'll co-stream and watch the final live. But aside from that, I'll watch the final live where I'll see if my pred comes through or not. But I feel like there's some good justification there. I feel like everyone's got some good justification. And
if you hear an eruption like of the sound levels of the explosion of Krakatau, just like zipping a planet, my preds went wrong and I didn't get first this year. It's just like going, like pretty much if I drill down here, I think I come out in New Zealand somewhere, so it's not far away from the other side of the world.
Dude, I think you could do a shout. I think at that state, whether you win or lose, we're going to get that, we're going to get that wave.
Yeah. I mean,
whether your preds come through or not.
Realistically, what you should be able to do is like, okay, if the preds don't work out, you will hear it. If the preds do work out, you just have to look towards the south and follow the big red light going up in the horizon. That should be visible from the entire stratosphere.
All right, well there it is. We're going to wrap up now, folks. That is Tactical Crutch. Episode 178 done and dusted, the June Joust preview. We're going to be back next Wednesday for, I guess, the June Joust postmortem. We'll be breaking down how the tournament actually went, coming back and readdressing where we were. Some of our preds will be very accurate. Some of us will get owned. I might get owned. We'll see, and that'll be fun. That'll be lots to get through. And then we'll, maybe be able to preview Summer Showdown as well, and our thoughts on how the next meta is going to be with hero pools removed. Considering all the balance changes and all of that. But thank you for joining us. Leave a comment, subscribe, and we'll see you next week.